All right. Hello, everyone. Today we're going to be continuing our discussion with a Better Call Saul with Dancing Sean. Last week we discussed basically seasons 1 through 5, the lead up into season 6, and we briefly touched on little things about season 6 as a broad thing and went into detail on like the very intro shot. But we're going to be diving into season or episode 1 of season 6 and episode 2, and potentially jump to the now episode. I think they're on episode 6. Discuss maybe predictions. But first,
in general, it's hard to talk about any episode of this show without referencing a bunch of other episodes. The show
that is true.
Very interconnected and well orchestrated and everything. So.
Yes. Like the stuff that's happening with Howard, it's like very layered, intertwined with, this builds up on each of the episodes, or not, Joe. Okay, so anyways, we're gonna dive into episode 1. We already talked about the intro scene, like the scene where there's like ties dropping into a bucket and people are moving stuff in a house, which we were pretty sure that's Saul's house. It'd be shocking if it wasn't Saul's house. Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Eric, but I do feel the need, if anyone is just starting to watch this is going to be full of spoilers. If you want to watch Better Call Saul, we're assuming that you've watched it here. We're going to dive into details, so be wary. I think the show is good enough, even if you know some details about where the plot is going. It's still an amazing, great show, one of the greatest shows of all time.
Yes.
So maybe our discussion will spur you to watch this amazing, great show that we love so much, that has so much to talk about. But if you're worried about being spoiled, don't listen to us now.
That is absolutely true. So, in general, each of the seasons have, you call it the Gene segment, right? Mm-hmm. Where they show Saul basically in the future. Like, this show is a prequel to Breaking Bad, but it's also not prequel, but like a continues off of what happened in Breaking Bad with the character Saul and potentially maybe even other characters. But there's these Gene episodes that focus on Saul, on what he's doing in potentially the present time. And people are trying to figure out exactly what that all means, because it's very like a puzzle. I feel you don't really get the full picture. And that's what the intro is. Yes.
On many levels, this show is like a puzzle.
This is true.
Mystery. It's presented like a mystery. It's part crime drama, part legal drama. It's one thing that's great about it is they're kind of intertwining a lot of different stuff. And like you said, I think it is a prequel, but it's also a sequel. And like, I mean, not exactly, but both the shows, many shows in TV, especially in modern times, jump around in timelines. You get flashbacks and flash forwards and stuff like that. And as a whole, Better Call Saul is showing what was going on leading up to Breaking Bad, focusing on the lawyer character Saul Goodman, aka Jimmy McGill, his real name. But Breaking Bad had flashbacks, like we saw like way back why Gus has this beef with the Salamancas, for example. And in Better Call Saul, we get flashbacks also to the Saul in his youth, but before he became a lawyer and things like that. But also we get flash forwards. The intro scene of each season, the first scene of the first episode of each season, has been a black and white segment in the future of a character called Gene Takovich, which is Saul in the future. At the end of Breaking Bad, when Walt White's world was falling apart and Saul was tied up in it, he got out of town and assumed a new identity, changed his appearance, got a new ID, moved to a new town, and that's Gene, the manager of a Cinnabon. And and that's part of this story. Like as a whole, it's a prequel, but it's sort of a sequel because we're seeing what happens to Gene after the fact, and maybe we'll see what happens to some other characters also.
Yes. I just thought of this. Do you think when they come up with their names like Saul and Jimmy and Gene, do you think there's some meaning behind it? Like, why did they choose the name? I know when like I make a story, sometimes there's a reason why I will make a character that name. Sometimes it's random, but I just now thought of that. I don't know if there's like any symbol.
Certainly. I'm not good enough to know. It might be stated. The writers might have stated it somewhere. sometimes when a writer does that, they're modeling it after some other character in literature or history.
That's true.
Sometimes it's just like their friend from high school or something. Uh, for sure, Saul Goodman is a play on words. It's all good, man. That's like that was Jimmy's clever idea,
Yes,
or
yes.
the writers of the show's clever idea to have Jimmy have that clever idea, or whatever.
I think they even stated that in season like 3 or 4 why he came up with Saul. But
yeah, I think that on some level, Gene is meant to sound kind of normal and plain.
That's true.
No offense to people out there named Gene, but he didn't choose the name Xavier, or it needed to be something basic and plain. Maybe there's even some value to Gene, could be spelled in different ways, and so when you're trying to hide your identity, that might be something you get away with, signing your name one way one time, one another, to make it harder to track you down.
That's true.
Maybe similar to Jimmy, might be good to have a name that can be James or Jim, that he can switch his persona. Slippin' Jimmy kind of has a ring to it. So, I wonder if they came up with that idea of him having these pretend to fall and injure himself and get someone to pay him cash rather than sue. I wonder if they had that piece of his character worked out before they came up with his name.
Yeah.
Or maybe there is some person in the world called Slippin' Jimmy who did that, and maybe that's where they got the name. I don't exactly know, but those are some thoughts on it.
Yeah. All right. So after the intro scene, after the Gene scene, oh yeah, we never talked about this. The actual intro, like they have like that 30 maybe 15-second song, and like there's a clip
the logo
of
and the song that plays, the credits that come and such. Yeah,
I'm assuming there's lots of either symbolism or foreshadows or something along those lines. Oh yeah, like I said, I don't think we've ever discussed it. I don't even honestly know. I never I think about it, but then I'm like, this just seems so, I don't say random, but it does, but I know they did that on purpose. Like each of them, like there's like the car and it zooms in on the tag. There's I think there's a Statue of Liberty who possibly
there's like the scales.
Yeah,
often part of the logo. I haven't looked too deep into it. Here's some superficial thoughts. One is, I think that it can't have too great of a meaning. It's got to be a little bit generic because they've been using it season to season.
Yeah.
And the writers have said that they have some general ideas about where things are going, kind of like George Martin, but they don't have like this end goal, and then they write everything to get to the end goal. They have these characters in this scenario, and then they let it play out naturally. And they have to think about how they would let it play out naturally. And it is a little bit different in this show than most shows because they do have certain landmark moments they get to because of the Breaking Bad world. Like Saul can't die, at least not yet. Gene can die, right, in the future. But they do need to lead into that. They need to account for certain things, like Gus has got to still be in control of this cartel empire.
Yeah.
Right. So they have certain things that they have to maintain continuity with. But generally speaking, they want to have the characters behave as they normally would given the situation and see where that leads. That's how they've been writing it.
I mean, it's kind of like Hector. Like Hector, we knew Hector was in a wheelchair. And then when you first
had to happen to get him there.
Yeah. Like they introduced him and he's not in a wheelchair and you're like, oh, that's cool. What happened? Like, how did he get to that point?
So anyway, my point is that they can't pigeonhole themselves too much with something they put in the intro.
That's true.
Right? They can't put something in there that isn't going to maintain throughout. And they also, I think, don't want to put something in there that only matters for the first season because they keep using the same intro season to season. Now, that said, there are some subtle differences. I saw someone make a video clip of all of them side by side, and you can see slight variations in colors and a couple new images.
Cool.
I haven't broken it down frame by frame like that. I'll tell you one thing. I think that I saw someone say that there's like a hand putting out a cigarette that's mixed in there. And we never have seen Jimmy smoking or Saul smoking in Breaking Bad. But who smokes all the time? Kim. So people wonder if maybe that's Kim's hand putting out the cigarette. But I don't know for sure if that was in the season 1 intro or the season 6 intro. I haven't broken it down. I'm sure there are people out there that have. It might be worth looking into that.
So we open up with that, obviously. One little tip about the intro. One of my favorite things about that intro is how they cut it. Like the actual cut of the song, it almost doesn't finish the song. Like they like abruptly cut it, but it's so well edited. I don't know how they do it, by the way, but I just think that's a cool little editing trick they do. You know, almost like a storytelling. I don't know, but anyways, I like it. So the first scene after that is, give me one sec. Let's see. Reflection. Oh, okay. Nachos. So Nacho is you basically continue from where he left off. Like he left Lalo to get killed, and then he runs. Like he just straight up runs. I don't know, like 2 hours in some direction. And he's wearing a red shirt. So I like pointed that out. He gets a call from Mike on the phone. And he's just trying to hide. I don't know if you have any thoughts of the scene. It's a pretty basic scene. Like it's a pretty, or make that straightforward scene. You know.
I will say, especially since you brought it up, and I know we're going to bring it up over and over again. Color is important. For anyone who's just now tuning in and or didn't watch the early episode we talked about or haven't realized it yourself, color is a huge part of this show. Real briefly, red represents criminal, evil, immoral, bad, negative antagonist. Blue represents good, legal, moral protagonist. You know, that realm. You know, sometimes you might have someone who's trying to do the right thing that breaks the law, or someone who is technically within the law, but they're still being evil. So you can have some variation, but the general idea, that's what red and blue represent in the show. Also, yellow seems to represent ambiguity. Oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Uncertainty, transition, things along that line. Green represents protection, cover, like a facade or some sort of safety or being hidden, things along that line. Okay.
Yeah.
So in this moment, red, or leading up to this moment, I should say, Nacho is wearing red because he's kind of the bad guy here. Yeah. Now, sometimes it's relative, like Nacho and Lalo are both bad guys. Okay. Yeah. So, and generally, Nacho has been moving toward being a good guy. He's got, you know, through the course of the show, or like before the show even started, you know, he's gotten himself mixed up in like drug trade and gangs and stuff. But we see several times that he's not really happy with this life, that he's kind of stuck in it, and his father is even starting to get dragged in it, and he's trying to figure out a way out. He's trying to protect his dad and get out of this whole thing, but big bad guys, Hector, Gus, are using his dad against him to keep him in it. And part of why he has teamed up with Gus against Lalo doesn't realize this. He's like a double agent. Nacho's like a double agent, and is trying to take out Lalo, is because he thinks that means his dad will be safe.
Yes.
The Salamancas won't be after his dad anymore. Gus will like let him go after he does this thing for them, and he and his dad can just get out of this. Now that doesn't turn out to be the case. Yeah. But in this moment, in going after Lalo, what's going to happen is these mercenaries bust into Lalo's home, which is partly Lalo, this bad guy, and his henchmen and drug dealers and thugs, but also like his cook and, you know, this old lady, like people who maybe don't know or have anything to do with the bad guy part of it. Just like,
wasn't that his family?
You know?
Yeah.
It wasn't clear, but I think that woman might have been his grandmother.
I got the feeling that this whole house was either his family or, like you said, like a close friend or a cook. Like, you know, you grow up with these people, you know. But it comes down to it, it's his house. Mix,
you know, and you might even be able to argue that it's the family member of a drug cartel boss.
Yes.
Still on some level bad. But, you know, but we see that Nacho is worried about it. Like when he's talking to, I can't remember if he's talking to Tyrus. He's communicating
Tyrus
with
or Mike
someone
or something.
about,
Yeah. I think it's Mike, but.
And he's like, hey, look, you know, make sure this is clean. There's innocent people here. There's the cook and this old lady. Like, don't just come in and slaughter everyone. And they're like, click. They just hang up on him. You know, Point being that I feel like Nacho's kind of trapped, and he's generally in this bad guy position through most of the show and in this moment. But pretty quickly we see he's gonna change shirts. Like he's gonna get to like a safe place and get a new shirt, and it's not red anymore.
Yes. So, and I think I didn't know this 100%, but I was like pretty sure they were outside the country And the scene also pretty much just says he's outside the country, like he's in Mexico. Or, yeah. Because there's like the Mexicans that are just wandering the streets, not wandering the streets, but like driving and checking stuff. They're potentially trying to find him. I mean, obviously you realize that they are, but I think that the point of seeing this, he's running. They're showing that people are after him. He gets a call from Mike. I love how like Mike just in general like talks, like he's just like straightforward to the point, very professional, but like in the back of his mind sometimes he doesn't like to do this or tell him the situation, like if he like was told Nacho that there's people here, he's like yeah I know, they're probably all gonna die, he's thinking in the back of his head, but he's like, it just needs to be done, unfortunately.
Mike's trying to remove emotion from it.
Exactly.
This is what has to be done. He's trying to just be a robot about it all,
Mm-hmm. So after that scene, the next scene is Lalo. I remember the scene was like, when I first watched it, was pretty hard to watch almost. Like you're trying to understand what's going on. He walks into a house, there's a lady, and he knows the lady knows him. They seem to have like some type of history. And a guy comes in, like a mountain man with big beard, and he talks about his teeth. Or the teeth was mentioned, like basically Lalo was taking care of this family. And it's just not like he's taking care of this family. It seems like he takes care of a community, and he's respected and everyone likes him. And you realize,
by the way,
yes,
that's the case for a lot of drug dealers. A
yes,
lot of
yes.
People who get make huge amounts of money off cocaine or whatever in the U.S. back in their poor third world countries in Central America, whatever. They're like gods and heroes. They have all this money and they give it out to their community. They build gyms and pools and send kids to school and like new roads and get teeth fixed for their neighbors. And they're just even if there's this sort of evil source of it all, they do a lot of positive stuff with it for their communities.
Which is interesting because you bring that up. I remember you talked about a show called The Wire that kind of talks about some of these issues. But basically, the drug people, could they be theoretically in the longer picture or overall picture better than some of the political people? That's like obviously like a debate.
Yeah. That's a deep discussion to get into.
Exactly.
But there's points to be made there. Yeah.
But overall, that's kind of like I felt like what the scene was interpreting. Was Lalo has great relationships with his community, but he has to do something that he doesn't want to do. He has to kill this mountain man because he needs to find a body double. Like it almost like he knew this, like in the back of his head, like he had to have somebody in general.
This was part of a master plan.
Exactly.
Lalo knew that one day a scenario like this might come about, and he was ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
He had that tunnel out of the house. He has this guy that is the same physical build as him. He even tells him to shave the beard but keep the mustache.
Exactly.
And the fact that he got dental work done for the guy means that now that we can plant that body, he can have his own dental work switched out with this guy.
Exactly.
It's just all this pre-set up plan that he had.
Which
it means he has to kill these innocent people, but to keep it looking like the hit on him worked. So he can move around, and Gus thinks he's still dead.
So in episode 2, Gus is having a discussion. This is like obviously in episode 2. He has like all the paperwork out of like what happened at the scene, and he talks about the dental. I didn't catch that the first time for some reason, or maybe I did, but like it was like just like like this went past me. And when I was analyzing, because that's obviously important because they connected that with this scene, about the dental work and all that. I don't know. Details is very good.
First time either. This show is thick with information.
Yeah.
There's so many. Every little detail matters, and you're paying attention to so many things. Your mind is constantly speculating on like where it's going and how this makes sense based on what happened before. And I'm trying to get clues from the colors, the songs that they use. Like everything means something. And there's no way to get it all in the first time. I think that's one reason this show was great. And a lot of times the sign of a good show is it not only is it worth rewatching, you almost need to. You know what I mean? It's,
yes, absolutely.
There's so much in there, you just can't get it all at once. So.
And
Like if you could sit down with a puzzle and just pick up a piece and set it down and pick up a piece and then just put it all together and never have to think or figure anything out, it's probably not a good puzzle. It's not that you're some crazy genius. That was probably like a second grader puzzle.
Exactly. I'll give props to the guy who plays Lalo. It's like Tony something. But
Tony Dalton.
Thank you. Yeah, Tony Dalton. But the scene where he actually kills the mountain man. The mountain man's, do I have his name? I know it's probably irrelevant, but Mateo, I think his name is.
Mateo, yeah. I think his wife's name was Sylvia.
Yes, correct.
I might have that wrong, but yeah.
No, it's Sylvia. But he's like in the bathroom shaving, and Lalo comes right behind him. And it's like a dark lit scene, and he had like his charismatic smile, and then it just goes to like this like serious look. Like I said, I give props to the actor because he did a fantastic job of delivering this, but it almost looked like he didn't want to do it, but he knew he had to do it. And
yeah, I feel the same way too. I think that he's disappointed he has to do this.
Exactly.
He's still going to do it. He's, it's such a weird thing. Like it doesn't make it better. It doesn't make him okay.
Mm-hmm.
But we do like him more than we would have if he was just purely a cold-blooded killer. Like he's different from Anton Chigurh in No Country for Old Men.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That guy was pure. I'm hesitant. I don't know what word to use. Sociopath, psychopath, but he truly had no emotion about killing these people.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas it seems like Tony Dalton and even Mike do, they try to hold it back. They try to make it not matter, but you can tell that it does. Now they keep doing it,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to justify it, but it is a difference between them being pure evil and being humans that have just kind of given up on the morality, right?
Yep.
They don't want to kill a bunch of people. They want to preserve their family. They want to maybe even preserve their ego or their money or whatever it is. They don't want to kill people, but they are willing to do it for sure.
And
if they're willing to kill this innocent couple, think what he's going to do to someone who is, guilty. In his eyes.
Like obviously in his mind, Gus is, and anybody who's associated with Gus, may blame Jimmy or Saul. Like that's. I feel like it's
two coyotes that give him a hard time.
Exactly.
About his money back. Like you guys are dead. Like I'm not thinking twice about killing you.
Exactly. So I love the transition from that scene, the scene where, by the way, they don't show him die. It's implied because the next scene they show, what was it called? A place where they put they're at a motel or a hotel, not motel, a hotel, and there's like the service, with like a tray, and it has like food on it. I can't remember what that's called, but basically,
room service.
Yeah, tray. Is outside the door, and it shows M&Ms. So it basically shows a lot of sweets, and I feel like they highlighted, at least in my mind, the red. Like there's like red syrup and all that. But in my mind, that's the blood that he just did. He just like cut his neck or whatever he did. I just like that transition. Like sometimes like it's an implied thing that just happened.
I don't remember. What were they transitioning to?
So they go from him looking at him and his face turning, to the serious face, and then they cut off. And the next scene is M&Ms and red syrup and a whole pack of sweets or ice cream serving stuff.
Where is this stuff?
Oh, at a hotel. I don't know why they're at a hotel, but they're at a hotel. I'm sorry, hotel? Saul and Kim.
Saul and Kim. Oh, that's right. I think that they were like living it up in the hotel. They had left their home because Lalo showed up. They were worried about what might be going down. So they were like hiding out at a hotel, and they were just ordering room service. They were just trying to enjoy the moment for what they could.
Yeah. But I
didn't remember where they were at because remember Nacho ends up at a hotel.
Yes. That's why I was like, motel and hotel are actually different. Motels outside, hotels are indoors. But they could have chose just to go to Saul and Kim, but they chose to show that first. Which, like I said, in my mind was like, oh God, that was probably disgusting, gory, whatever. But they didn't show it. You just had to imply it.
Showed something sweet instead. Yeah.
Sweet. Exactly. I love like when shows in general do things like that. It's
There's
creativity.
definitely careful decisions between the image on screen when one scene ends to the image on screen when the next scene starts. It's
Exactly.
definitely a segue is something that the editors think about.
Exactly. So the scene is actually about, Saul and Kim, or Jimmy and Kim. Let's see. I say they have a great shot in the bedroom. Why them looking into a mirror, brushing their teeth and talking about their clients. So I just noticed that, and I think we have a shot of this. This is where Kim's has a blue toothbrush, and Saul I think had a red toothbrush. I could be wrong, but
Really? I didn't catch that.
I know everything
it's
that
happened in the past. I would be surprised if it was still happening here. At least sort of surprised, because Kim is starting to shift to the dark side, if you will.
Yeah. Let's see. Did I mention that? Let's see. Saul wearing blue and gray. I did notice the blue thing with Kimmy. I remember the scene, but overall, they're talking about. I think they're starting to have the idea of Howard. Is this the scene? Yeah. I think they talk about what they're planning on doing with Howard in the scene.
Yeah, the last 2 episodes of the prior season, the idea was stewing in their mind. They were kind of starting to. At first, it was like, wouldn't it be funny if? And then they were like, here's some details of how we could do it. And Saul's like, yeah, this is fun to think about, but we wouldn't do this. And Kim's like, wouldn't we? It was kind of like, it seemed like at the end of last season, they were kind of deciding they were going to do it. And it seemed like Jimmy was kind of reluctant, I don't know about this. And Kim's like, no, let's go, which is kind of backwards from normal. Usually Jimmy is coming up with some weird scheme. And Kim's like, you can't do this XYZ problem. I don't want to be involved. Now she's coming up with the scheme, and Jimmy's like, I guess I'll go along. Yeah.
Slipping Jimmy, not being Slipping Jimmy. So, a couple of I guess things that stood out were Saul was wearing blue and gray, getting a brown or silver coat ready. I think I couldn't determine what the color was, or maybe there was a couple coats and he chose that. Kim is wearing a green suit. What's green mean again?
I think green is on the side of protected, cover, safe, a facade. In that realm, those are all slightly differences. I don't remember her suit being quite green, but if it was, the way I would make sense of that is that at this moment, Kim and Jimmy think that Lalo is dead.
Yes, they did.
If I remember right,
they do.
Mike told him that Mike told Jimmy, Jimmy went to Mike in this panic, I can't handle this. I don't know what's going on. My wife might not be safe. And Mike's like, don't show up my house like this. But here's the deal: you don't need to worry about it. They're gonna take care of Lalo. So then he tells Kimmy, so they feel like they're safe. They feel like, oh, this madman that showed up at our house, it's a no murder. I guess we don't have to worry about him. So he feels safe right now.
Also, they bring up the cup. There's this cup that you talked about it. The yellow cup that they try to put, that Saul tries to put in his car and couldn't fit. But this cup has a gun hole or a gunshot through it, which happened last season. I can't remember how that happened, but overall happened. Do you remember?
That's when Saul went out to get the money. Part of the plot was that Lalo had been arrested, and Saul was representing him, and he had to go get money, $7 million or something, to bail him out. And so he met these cartel guys in the desert to get the money, and then they got ambushed, and Saul had a gun to his head. Mike showed up with a sniper rifle, shot him from a distance, and they had to trek through the desert, drinking their own pee to survive. That was that whole scenario.
Okay, yeah, I remember that.
That was, but when they showed up with that shootout, when they got ambushed, Saul's car got shot up along with his thermos that Kim had given him, the yellow thermos with red writing, world's second best lawyer. Kim's the best, and Saul's second best. And I do love to point this out. It was in an earlier season, but it's one of the best representations of how they use color in the show. Is that, Saul drives around a yellow car with a red door. So he's in this, uncertain transition time period of his life where he has this element of bad, right? That's
Yeah.
stuck with him with his car. He's driving around in this kind of like ambiguous area between good and bad, legal and illegal, but with a leaning toward red because of the one red door. And in it, through the course of the show, he ends up getting a legit job at a big law firm, and he's got his own office, and it's like he's kind of like moved away from the shady lifestyle. And he takes this red and yellow thermos that Kim has given him to put in the cup holder of the new blue car that he got from the legit law firm, and it won't fit. And it wasn't just like a passerby moment. There's a whole thing. They spent a whole scene on this. He was like he got like a crowbar, trying to jam it in, like but it's very symbolic of how you can't have both. So you can't be living this ambiguous criminal lifestyle and have the good, legit job on the side of the law. You can't do both. They made a big point of that.
Yeah.
But anyway, both his car and that cup got shot up with bullets in that whole showdown out in the desert.
Mm.
Part of how Kimmy figured out more had happened than Jim was telling her. And flip side is how Lalo figured out more was happening than Jimmy had told him too. There were scenes of each of them looking through the bullet hole. There was a scene of Lalo like looking through the bullet hole of the car, and a scene of Kim looking through the bullet hole of that cup.
Mm-hmm.
And they each knew that Jimmy wasn't giving them the full story. I think masterful pieces of the puzzle, as we were talking about earlier.
With the
anyway, yeah. Kim takes his cup and throws it away. And
exactly, that was the point of it. Yeah. And then they get into a yellow taxi. But but no, yeah, I love that. Yeah, it just ends with her tossing that. So the next shot is let's see, a close up pan of the hit squad dead. Okay, so this is where the twins, the Salamanca twins, I think they're twins, Lionel and Marco come in, and they just
I think, I'm sorry, I can't be 100% sure about the names, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely have their name is it's looks like Leon and then L. I think that's Lionel pronounced. Okay. And Marco's the other one. And if I'm correct, Marco is the one who wears purple and Lionel wears orange, which I'm not sure what that means, honestly. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
So I think that the red and the blue are clear and consistent and permeate the whole show. I've recently, and yellow is pretty prominent too, but I'm a little less sure about what it means exactly, and even the meaning I came up with is like uncertainty and ambiguity,
Yeah.
I'm even less sure about orange and purple. I think that orange probably mean, like, keep in mind that both orange and purple are like kind of right there next to red, So yeah. I still think they're in the realm of like bad, illegal, immoral, which these characters are.
But one leans more toward blue, like purple,
Yeah, blue. Exactly.
Is that like loyalty?
Yeah, it could mean, especially because
honor,
these
maybe
guys
weirdly
are like on Lalo's side, and in this scenario, Lalo has been wronged, and so maybe it kind of makes sense that they're in purple, because there's like a hint of blue. They're trying to like get revenge for a bad thing that happened. Maybe on some level, it shows that they, in this scenario, in Mexico, in Lalo's compound, like Lalo is probably like a good guy to the people in his community. So maybe the Salamanca twin, purple indicates that he. Remember how all like the officials, the police or whatever around, they just accept them coming in. Maybe you see what I'm saying. It kind of maybe shows that they are, in a way legal.
Yeah. And they seem to be respected but feared in that community.
For sure, yeah. Orange, same thing. Orange is like kind of on the edge of being illegal, so maybe not completely illegal. So maybe these guys, in a way, are immoral and illegal in the U.S., but maybe in this community, not completely. They're not straight up red, which we've seen color used in this sort of relative way, like, and it's relative in two different ways, like relative to red, like pure red versus orange or pink is that the difference in those, right? And then there's also relative to like the scenario at hand. So for example, if we go back to the beginning of the series, I think it was in the second episode when Saul was mixed up in those skaters that were trying to run a scam,
Yeah.
but they accidentally bump into Tuco, and the Tuco wants to kill them, and Nacho shows up, and he's like the level head. Tuco's in red. Nacho shows up in blue because he's
Hmm.
on the relative other side of crazy bad guy Tuco. In this
Yeah.
moment, Nacho is relatively good. He
Mhm.
don't kill them. You know what I mean? Let's
Yeah.
calm down and figure out another plan, right? So, but then later on, we see Nacho in red pretty consistently because he often is in the bad guy antagonistic scenario. Eventually, eventually we see that transition. We start to see Nacho wearing less red, but red being around him. Once he goes from being an active bad guy to trying to get away from the bad guys, but he's still kind of surrounded by it, he stops wearing red as much, and just there's like a red painting on the wall behind him, or he drives a red car, things like
Yeah.
that. But the point is that even though Nacho, especially in the beginning, was generally cast as a villain in red, when he was there with Tuco, he was blue because
Mhm.
Tuco's like obvious extreme super bad. So
Yeah.
Tuco's in red and Nacho's in blue. So in this scenario, within this community, in this moment when innocent people in Lalo's compound have been harmed, in this scenario, those Salamanca twins, they're not straight up bad guys. They're not straight up red.
Yeah.
Like on some level, as characters in general, they're protecting their family, right? They're doing a good thing. They're maybe you could argue they're just doing what they're told, and they don't necessarily know the evil bad things that go on. I mean, I'm not trying to justify them, but you can
Yeah.
see relatively how they're not, in this scenario at least, they're simply bad guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a
Yeah.
lot of times you see them cast in slightly more neutral tones,
Mhm.
kind of like a lot of other characters, like we were saying just a minute ago, who generally speaking are just making emotionless decisions, following someone else's orders, like Mike and the Salamanca
Yes.
twins. They're often in pretty neutral tones, just like black or gray or brown.
Mhm.
That makes sense. I think that they're either not clearly, obviously good guys, bad guys, or maybe the writers are trying to hide it from us. They don't want us to feel or think that they're obviously clearly good guys or bad guys. So
Yeah.
anyway, a little bit of a tangent, but just to show you how much the colors can get you to think and potentially symbolize and stuff as you watch this.
Yes. Yes. Do you know anything about the Reaper card?
What?
Like, so the Salamanca twins, they always I've seen this come up a couple times, but they have like this little Reaper card. But when they go to
I
this
don't even know what
scene,
word you're saying. You're
oh
saying
Reaper,
Reaper like Grim Reaper?
yes, yes,
And card like a business card?
yes, yeah. They have like
Okay,
a
so a
business card
Reaper
that has a
card?
Reaper symbol on it, and they put it on things. They put it on the dead body
Okay.
of Lalo. Well, at least the fake Lalo. I don't know if it's supposed to be like they're gonna get lawful, as in they're lawful, revenge.
Maybe righteous
Or
revenge?
righteousness, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey Alex, how's it going? Why is red always is always evil? That's a good question. I mean, this is what they
Red
chose
always
to.
evil?
Alex in chat asked, "Why is red always evil?"
Well, I don't know if Alex is keeping up, but we're talking about Better Call Saul, and in Better Call Saul, red tends to mean bad, not necessarily evil, but illegal, evil, negative. Like a lot of times in the world, red is associated with danger, negative, bad, whatever. In this show, like for example, in Breaking Bad, it didn't necessarily even mean that, but it's just a decision the filmmakers used for this show for red to symbolize not necessarily evil, but illegal, moral, antagonistic. Like there's a range of meaning. It's not necessarily always evil.
Mm-hmm. But anyways, yeah, sorry, the business card. So they do that. They leave the scene. It goes to Gus getting a call from Juan, which is I guess the mediator between the families, if I'm correct. It's the
Bolsa.
yes, yeah. I think his first name is Juan. But yeah, Bolsa.
I believe his role is okay. So Don Eladio, he's the head of the Mexican cartel, which is branched out all over. But where our story is centered in like the Southwest U.S. Kind of New Mexico and Albuquerque specifically, and so they never spell all this out, but this is what makes sense to me. Generally speaking, organizations, they usually, under a leader character, there will be
I would let him
sub
know.
leaders. Like one, like it might be easiest to relate to the military. Like you'll have like a battalion commander is a colonel, right? And then under him, he'll have company commanders. And so the company commanders will be captains, and they'll be in charge of, like whatever, 80 or 100 people, whoever, how many people are in their company. So he'll have several captains who are in command of the different companies. But then he'll also have a staff of people who are in charge of different areas of responsibility rather than like another group of people. Like they might have a small group of people under them also, but someone will be in charge of like intelligence or logistics or, different areas of responsibilities. That makes sense. And sometimes he might also have like an assistant, an executive officer, or
Yeah.
someone maybe in charge of all the other assistants or something like that. And all those people are sort of on the same level. They're basically reporting to the same leader. And in the army, they usually would all be the same rank, but they have different areas of responsibility. The captain who's in charge of intelligence wouldn't tell a squad of soldiers to go clean a Humvee in a motor pool, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the company commander who would tell his soldiers to go, practice with their weapons or clean the Humvee in the motor pool, that captain isn't going to go tell the intelligence officers to go intercept this radio signal. That
Right.
even though they're the same rank and they all report to the same leader, they have different areas of responsibility. So I think that Gus and Hector and others are the next layer of leaders who are in charge of drug trade. And they're going to have people underneath them also.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Bolsa is someone who is on their same level, but he's not in charge of a group of people who are doing drug trade. He's in charge. He's like Eladio's right hand man. He's in charge of of logistics. Make sure that this person called this person and this truck is heading to this location and that people aren't fighting amongst each other. He's trying to keep peace. He just wants the money to keep flowing in. Bolsa doesn't care if Gus did something to Lalo. He doesn't care if Hector has this beef with blah, blah, blah. He's like, look, just keep doing your freaking jobs. How do I keep you guys in line here? I think that's the role of Bolsa here. That he's sort of in charge of Gus and Hector. He's going to report back to Eladio and say, hey, this is what's going on. Eladio sent him down there to keep peace between the different entities.
He wanted to point out nice Avatar shirt.
Oh, thank you.
It is awesome. But yes, so that's what the scene is pretty much about, is what's going on with Gus. Is Gus basically not looked at, which he's not. That he's not. People may assume that he may be involved, but for one, also is like, just wants to keep the peace, make sure that war is not going to break out because Salamanca just got killed.
Gus is definitely being looked at because it's known that he has a beef with Salamancas, or the Salamancas have a beef with him. So he's like the top candidate to be behind this. And Hector wants to just freaking kill him, but he knows he can't start this war.
Yep.
Also is trying a way to stop a war from happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what's going on here.
And the choice of like how they like, I think the scene opens up with the cell phone and Gus is in the background and he kind of picks up the cell phone, and the choice of how they do the camera shots is really neat, especially since it's mostly a quiet scene. Like obviously he picks it up and he gets the dialogue, but like for a moment there's like this like mysterious tension or whatnot. Appreciate how they shoot some of the scenes just in general. But then it goes over to Mike. The next scene is Mike enters the trailer to talk to Gus, and I'm not sure how to pronounce him, but I think his name is Tyrus. 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 Tyrus, you said? Okay. But he's an interesting character. He's very, very loyal to Gus, Tyrus. Like almost like a bodyguard, I feel like. He's always there usually when Gus is around, at least in business situations.
Get the idea that he's sort of like what Bolsa is to Don Eladio.
Yes.
Tyrus is to Gus. However, Mike has come into a similar position.
Mm-hmm.
I think might make Tyrus a little jealous.
That's a good point. Yeah,
I've kind of butt heads a little bit.
I've noticed that. Yes. But they're talking about Nacho, what they're gonna do about Nacho, because they know that, Vargas, Nacho Vargas. I think they refer to him as Vargas because it's his last name, is more professional. But they're trying to figure
Probably
out,
a lot of nachos, and so Vargas distinguishes a little bit better.
Yeah. Are they going to kill him? Are they going to, like, what are scenarios that could happen? Like, if he gets captured, they're screwed. They know it, so they have to make a plan. And also kind of like just figure out what the heck actually happened over there, because they don't really know what happened. They just know that Lalo died, but a whole pack of other people died, and Lalo got burnt, so they can't like verify the body 100%. They could assume it's him, but they can't verify it's actually him.
Pretty much everyone's assuming except for Gus. Gus can't help but be suspicious.
Yeah, which is probably a good thing. I mean, it can be a bad trait because you're always paranoid, but like also you're very thorough. Like nothing's gonna blindside you. Hopefully, if you're that paranoid.
It's a consistent part of Gus's character is for him to be very thorough, maybe overly thorough. Like, I bet a psychologist watching the show would diagnose him with obsessive compulsive disorder.
They also bring up the line, like, Mike was like, I respect Vargas, and you should too. And Gus is like, I do respect him. I don't know. Some of the dialogue was like very kind of funny, but not. I loved how they did the dialogue, in it. But
Gus, much like Mike, is also very cold and dry and to the point. So the two of them having a conversation is. I want to say that I thought that it was a little frustrating for me as I watched this segment, and in the end, I made a little bit of sense of it. But let me try to spit this thought out. That I feel like Gus is making a big mistake here. Mike is trying to get Gus, and has been, like, through the course of this. Like, Gus didn't even want for Nacho to get into this scenario. He felt like Nacho's done his job. We put him in a tough position. He's done everything we asked for. We need to get him out of this. We need to respect him. But Gus wants to keep on using him, wants to keep him under his thumb, wants to keep threatening his dad. Mike is frustrated with the whole scenario. And the point that I'm both frustrated with Gus for not doing this and for Mike not enunciating it properly. If enunciating is the right word to use. It's ironic that I might be using the wrong word here. But the problem is, if Gus doesn't show Nacho loyalty for everything that he's done, what do Gus's other followers think?
Exactly.
Why would they show loyalty? Like, if this is how you treat someone when they put their life on the line for you, I don't know if I'm going to put the life on the line for you. Mike might be thinking to himself, like, what's keeping me loyal to you if you won't be loyal to Nacho now? I think Mike says it at one point, loyalty goes both ways.
Yes.
And so it's a little frustrating to me that Gus is not seeing this. It's also a little frustrating to me that Mike is not explaining it properly. But one, I got to keep in mind that Gus is still kind of growing and learning here, right?
Yeah.
He didn't necessarily start off as a perfect cartel mastermind. We saw that in Breaking Bad with Walt. He learned some lessons along the way, like even if they were cold, dangerous, disheartening lessons or whatever. But Gus is maybe learning that he needs to treat people better in order to maintain the loyalty, and this is part of his growth as a mob boss.
Yeah.
And also, Mike isn't necessarily the best communicator. That's not his virtue. We've seen maybe a few times where his bluntness has rubbed people the wrong way, or that he, like even one time he kind of had a falling out with his granddaughter just because, I mean, it was like a very different situation.
Yeah.
But, sometimes he has a hard time communicating well. It's a fault of his. So they're being consistent. Probably Gus should be able to piece together what Mike is saying anyway. Maybe not in the heat of the moment, this conversation, but when he sleeps on it. Which eventually Gus does say, okay, let's get him out of there alive, right?
Alex says, how you take care of one is how you take care of all, but always keep your foot on the neck of the line. But yeah. I think so. I'm a huge fan of Gus and Mike, obviously, from Breaking Bad, and I too am frustrated. I'm like, why is Gus being so almost stubborn? But yeah, like he's not. Nacho has maybe because he doesn't get to see like the full picture that we do technically, but you know, he should show more loyalty to people who do put their line, literally their line, lifeline on in the situation. But yeah, no, it's definitely interesting that you say that because I definitely have been feeling frustrated with Gus's actions, just not in this episode, but like prior seasons almost. But like you said, also he is evolving. He has to grow. He doesn't start perfect.
Yeah. Another thing, if I remember right, that happened in this scene here is we're seeing a moment that we saw earlier from a different perspective. We saw Nacho make this call. If I'm at the right point, Nacho calls Mike in the middle of this scene.
No,
right?
not that. That's next episode. Yeah, next episode. Because they do have a couple of.
Let's hurry up and get to the next episode.
To the trailer. Let's see. So the next scene after this is Saul and Kim go to the courthouse. So this is a scene where I think Saul slips up on his dialogue for calling Lalo something else.
Guzman was the name that he was using when Saul.
Yeah, the Guzman. Yeah. If I put that, and it's funny because so basically Saul, there's an ADA. An ADA is someone who looks into drug issues. Am I correct on that, or am I completely wrong?
ADA is a assistant district attorney.
Okay, I was wrong. But
may look into drug issues.
Yeah.
I think the character in the show, her name is Suzanne. She's a blonde woman. She's come up a few times.
So her name is Gina. Maybe Gina's
maybe there's a different assistant DA.
Yeah. But anyways, so he runs into, her. Maybe you're right. Maybe they're referring to ADA Gina. But anyways, I thought her name was Gina.
Two people that I think he talks to, they're police officers.
Yeah.
Of some sort, detectives or something.
Yeah. Maybe that's right. And they're talking about like some technical trial issue, like because this is like what you're talking about earlier, how he was representing Lalo. Now Lalo's missing, or do they know he's dead yet? I can't remember in the scene.
They don't know. They don't even know who he is. They just know that he skipped out on his bail.
Yeah. But he
trying to hold Saul responsible, and he's like, "You can't blame me that your guys didn't keep up with this guy. You got $7 million. I'm not a police officer. Like, I'm just his lawyer. I didn't know he was going to skip on bail.
Yes.
Playing dumb.
And I just love how that scene plays out. Just because it shows how he knows how to work the system in a way. Like and you kind of feel for Saul too. Like he has his job and other people have their job. So why blame it on him? Like why throw all the blame on one person when usually it's multiple people's issues. And he gets like so passionate he accidentally slips and says the wrong name, which is really funny. It's funny, but also like, oh no, he shouldn't have said that. And he smooths on what he said. I have multiple people. I screwed up.
But it's still a clue to them. They start to know who's
exactly
down now once he slips up. Yeah.
But yeah, fun scene, but also pushes the story forward. The next scene is with Kim. The coat Kim brings. It says the coat Kim brings to the courthouse is given to one of the clients. Okay, no, this is the dining scene. So Saul has like this suit. He had it a couple of, in the hotel. And he gives it to Kim. I was confused on this, but he gives it to Kim, and Kim gives it to one of her clients. It's like some Asian guy. As Saul enters the dining restaurant, a client that we realize walks out with the same suit that coat that he was holding. So it's like a minor little detail, but it's something I caught on the second run. And she's just trying to make her clients look good.
Nice suit as the guy walks by, right?
Yeah. It's something minor, but
Saul helping Jimmy. Saul is helping Kim.
Yes.
Kim's trying to help. Kim. Something that's happened in the background. She left the law firm. She has sort of made this decision. It seems she's maybe made several decisions, but a big part of the direction that Kim is going is she doesn't want to work for these big law firms that represent, people who are already rich.
Mm-hmm.
She wants to help people who are poor. She wants to help people who can't afford a good lawyer, who are trapped in the system, who got caught for something that's probably kind of minor, but it's going to ruin their whole life, or et cetera, et cetera. She's doing, pro bono work.
Yeah, which may
And,
go with the green suit. She's trying to protect people. I never thought,
and also, again, at this moment, she still feels safe. And
yes.
Was it a green suit that Saul gave her for this kid? Now, this kid is also protected by Kim. He's not going to get screwed by the system, etc.
Mm-hmm. And she kind of talks about a little bit about the issue with that client. That some rich guy. I think he was like at a gas station. This kid and his friend goes in and robs a place. Like the gas station. I may be wrong on the story, but overall, he robs a station.
She was representing was just the driver. He
exactly.
didn't know that the guy was going to rob the place, and
the guy.
So the rich kid that did the bad thing can hire a good lawyer and blame the poor kid. The poor kid doesn't. What do I do about this? Kim's there to save the day. She'll
exactly. So you kind of root for Kim. You're like, good on Kim, because you don't like to see people get screwed over in real life, or in everyday life. So that was like part of the point of it, but then they start going into detail on the Howard situation. Like what are they going to do? And I think this is like the moment that Jimmy's like, "Wait, we're really doing this?" And she's like, "Yes." And he's like, "Okay." Like he has like this like almost this like a concerned look, because I don't know if he's like scared for her to go down this route. He doesn't want to go down this route or what, but he also wants to support her, so he is there for her no matter what. It's really interesting. Like there's been a couple of times that he has this particular expression that I can't quite put my finger on it, but it's the best way I can think of is he's concerned,
Yeah, I would have said reluctant acceptance.
Yes. Oh, that's
think that he there's a piece of him that wants to be like, what? No, we can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
But a much bigger piece of him is I support whatever Kim wants.
Exactly.
This is exactly how she's been with him. So.
Yep. Things to point out in the scene. I loved how they use the camera work. I think the first time you see Saul and Kim sit down at the booth, it has like this wide shot. The camera's like, so normal camera shots are, you have point A like close up, point B close up, point A back close up. So basically a close up of Saul, close up of Kim, close up of Saul, maybe a profile shot, which is a sideways shot. Instead, they go with this like really wide shot where the camera looks like it's like on a booth. So you see like the foreground of the booth and they're in the background. So they're really tiny almost in a way. And on the wall is yellow. And it's a very interesting, and I love the camera shot. I don't know why they 100% did it. Maybe because it's like distant, like, they're doing something shady maybe, and they're like hiding in a corner. I'm not quite sure. The yellow, I'm not quite sure what that symbolizes. I don't, maybe it's just because that's the restaurant, but I highly doubt that. That's probably intentional.
Symbolizes the transition that they're going through here. That,
yeah,
they're not living the same lives and going through the same habits with the same set of morals that they were before.
Let's see. Sounds like. Oh yeah, and this is like a line that they say. Saul's like, sounds like the day was hell, and Kim responds, "It was one of the best days of my life." So like Saul's like just in his perspective, like just that's just shitty, but she loves this. She loves taking care of clients that really need her help. It's just a nice little thing about like where her mindset is. Like what she's trying to pursue in life, just to protect the small people, and that's just a line that like kind of represents that, I thought.
Yeah.
So, location. Talk about Howard. So we're gonna get more into detail on this, but about the Howard situation, because they're kind of like, this is like going into episode after episode. They're like they're planning something against Howard, in general, which I think you said you figured it out in the long run. But
I don't know if you want to talk about it now, but it'll be hard for me to talk about Howard stuff now.
Yeah. We'll get into it later.
On about how it's all going to play out.
Yeah. So this is kind of like this little bit of, this is what they're going to do. Or at the end of the shot, when she's like, okay, this is what we're going to do. They have a shot of the outside of the diner, or, the outside of the restaurant. You see a window, like you see through a window of them talking, but you can't hear anything. So,
yeah, a clever way to
exactly
hide it from us. Yeah.
Exactly. So the choice of camera shots, storytelling. I love how they do that. You go back to Nacho and he finds the motel, and he gets Mike contacts him and tells him basically just, you have to hide out in this place. I think this is a transition where he changes clothes. It's like a white shirt and blue jeans. Nacho.
He had like a white undershirt, but he had another like kind of bluish shirt.
Yeah,
he had over top. Yeah. Blue jeans. Yeah.
But basically, Mike says you have to stay at this place. Don't get seen. And I'll take care of you, basically, or I'll take care of the situation. That's pretty much what Nacho has to do. If he doesn't want to get killed. And you kind of see. I don't even know if you know the motel's name at this moment, because I know that gets revealed a little bit later. Maybe they do, but I'm not quite sure. Do you have any thoughts on the scene?
Well, I did want to point out something that's key to how it all plays out.
Huh?
Is that they specifically tell Nacho, if anyone comes to the door, shoot them.
Oh, yes.
And I think that's because they want there to be a shootout. They want him to get killed in a shootout so that he can't mess up what's really happening. Does that make sense? Like, if they catch him alive, then he'll tell him the truth. They want him to be killed in a shootout.
Okay. I think that's important to bring up because I didn't catch that.
There's no plan. They're telling him, hey, someone's going to come pick you out. You'll be safe. Yep. No one's coming to get him except for the bad guys.
Yeah.
And they want him to be killed in a shootout with the bad guys.
So this is going to jump to episode.
Details, I'm sure we'll get to it. But that's
this is going to jump out to episode 2, or jump to episode 2 really fast. At the beginning of episode 2, they show a safe. And you realize they're in Nacho's house. They have like Nacho's girlfriends. I'm not quite sure. Maybe one's a girlfriend, one's a friend. I don't know. But it doesn't matter. But their goal is to swap out the safe with a new safe. Same exact safe, but they need to put something in the safe. They put a number in, and this is what de Guzma, Juan. Yeah. He finds this letter has a number. He calls a number. They're like, this is Octolia Motel or something like that. So he knows that this is the motel. He sends people over there. So it goes with that, what you just said. Like, I didn't even catch that, because I was standing there thinking, I'm like, I knew that they sent him there, but I'm like, but didn't they not want him dead? They did want him dead. That's interesting. Want him dead. Yeah.
That's why Mike kind of hesitated. Like, to be clear, they swapped out the safe and all its contents, but just added one new thing.
Exactly.
And because they wanted it to be discovered by Bolsa, like they know the Salamanca's are going to send one to Nacho's house and like see what's there, look for clues or whatever. So they crack the safe open, take everything out of the safe, put it in a new
safe
version of the same safe, but with one extra thing that wasn't there before, which was like money transactions.
Yeah,
they made it look like someone was giving Nacho money. So when it wasn't Gus, with, some other rival gang in Peru or something was giving Nacho money. So that gives someone else, looks like someone else is behind all this. And then the phone number to the hotel or motel where Nacho was staying.
Yes.
Which basically is setting Nacho up to die, which is why Mike was the one that actually set this in there. And he kind of hesitated before he set it down. He's frustrated by this. But again, keeps going along with it.
Mm-hmm.
Also in there were fake IDs for Nacho and his dad.
I noticed that,
part of the getaway plan he was trying to put together. Mike does not put the dad's fake ID back in there. So again, a level of protection of Nacho's dad.
That's awesome. So that's pretty much what's going on with Nacho for a little while. Details of a marble going through the course. Oh. So sometimes they have these like unique. I mean, I've seen Hot Fuzz do this and all that, but it's like super, super close up of some type of object. In this case, it was a marble. You get to follow the marble. It was just a fun shot. I don't even know if it means anything. Maybe there's a big maze that's going on. I don't know. But they showed that scene. And you see Mike's hanging out with his his granddaughter. And you think it's like a fun, not a fun scene, but like a lighthearted scene until he walks away, gets a phone call from Nacho. And it feels like kind of like dark because like he knows that basically Nacho's screwed, and he's still hanging out. But in order for his life to be better, he has to just allow this to happen because he goes right back to his granddaughter, the one he's doing this all for in the first place.
That's what Mike's really worried about. That's what he's doing this all for, is to protect his granddaughter.
Yeah. And then pretty much the last scene. This is the Saul, Kim, and Howard scene with Cliff, where Howard is playing golf at like a club, I guess.
Country club.
Yeah. And they have to do something. Saul is tasked with doing something, and he's like, I can handle it. And Kim is supposed to observe and make sure that Howard is on course. And I particularly like the storytelling of this scene. It's maybe my favorite scene of this episode, potentially. So basically, they have, like, the writers have a plan. There is from point A to point B. Saul has to go to the locker to frame Howard. He has coke. Is the idea of the scene. So he has to go from point A to point.
Baggy. It's not even really coke. I think they said that it was like powdered sugar.
Yeah, baby powder or something.
Not actually really coke, but yeah. They want to plan it, make it look like Howard has it.
Yes, and he has to be with somebody, which is Cliff. Cliff has to witness this because it puts a little thing in his head that he's like, is he doing it? No, maybe. Like the Inception concept. Oh,
you plant the idea, exactly.
Yes.
Real quick to clarify, Cliff is key here because he's the head of the other law firm that's handling the Sandpiper case.
Yes.
Just to make that clear.
So, like I said, they have a goal, point A to point B, and then they give you a time limit. They're like, it's 45 minutes. Oh, that's plenty of time. So all he has to do is just get in there. He has, Saul's idea is he goes to this, what do they call him? Basically, like somebody who shows him a tourist. It's not tourist, but like somebody who walks him around.
Like a sales representative. He's like a marketing guy. It's like Saul's considering the story is, Saul's considering getting a membership at this club.
Yeah.
So they're going to show it off to him. Here's the golf course, here's the restaurant, here's the locker room. And in the course of this, Saul's going to sneak it in there.
Yes.
And he thinks he has 45 minutes to go through.
Exactly.
But then suddenly Kim, binoculars spying on Howard. Howard gets a call, and suddenly they're heading back. So she's, Jimmy, we gotta abort the whole thing.
And
we see another parallel to that later on too, by the way.
And you could just write it from point A to point B. He has a little bit of trouble getting in somehow, but instead they decide to bring in another character, and they have this complicated issue. They bring in what's this guy's name? Kevin. He runs into Kevin. Yeah, who I guess explain who Kevin is really fast.
Kevin was the head of a bank, some big institution that Kim was working for as a lawyer. And they were building some new site on some location, but there was this guy who lived there that didn't want to move. He only had a lease on the land, so he didn't really have a right to stay there, but the bank still felt bad about kicking him off the land to build their new facility. And so they offered him extra money, but the guy just wouldn't leave no matter what. Kim is frustrated with her being stuck in this spot. Jimmy ends up working the system to get this guy to sort of win out against the big bank. Mm-hmm. It was a whole convoluted thing that basically got Kevin to hate Jimmy. Jimmy really did some underhanded, mean, dishonest, whatever things to. Some of it maybe kind of like with good intentions. Some of it maybe legal. Some of it maybe not legal. But basically, he was able to overcome. It was a sort of David Goliath situation, the big bank, and it kind of ruined Kevin's big plan that he had invested a lot of time and money into. And so he's got a understandable grudge against Saul.
So he runs into him, and that becomes a big scene. So it goes from point A to point B to now there's an actual conflict, and he may not even be able to get in because of this issue. And
I think that he used this issue. I think Saul played this up. I think
he definitely did.
be a bigger conflict than it would have been, so that he could then get the sales guy, the representative of the
Mhm.
club, to like cater to him. He's like, "Well,
Yes.
can I at least use your bathroom?" Like the guy's gonna, after this weird awkward confrontation, this guy's gonna like just do whatever Jimmy wants. Well, maybe
Yes.
not whatever, but
Yeah.
Jimmy doesn't want much. He just, "Hey, can I just use the bathroom?" You know.
Like I know like they Jimmy brought up Jews. And I felt like out of nowhere. I was like, wait, is Jimmy even like could be Jewish? But it didn't matter. It was like a funny.
Welcome is a very Jewish sounding name.
Yeah.
Oftentimes law firms there is like a
Yes.
disproportionate amount of lawyers and law firms that are Jewish, and Kevin makes fun of, because his real name is Jimmy McGill, but he changed his name to Saul.
Uh-huh.
Kevin kind of makes a point of that. Saul turns it into like attacking Jews.
Exactly.
Attacking his name. Because the average person witnessing all this doesn't know that Jimmy changed his name.
No.
They don't understand why Kevin's being mean to him for no reason, etc. So
yeah,
Jimmy's able to take advantage of this whole scenario.
Exactly. And I just love how it all played out. I mean, it was like well written, well acted, funny, but like kind of like uncomfortable, you know.
It was tense and humorous and suspenseful and awkward, but it gets Jimmy into the bathroom
exactly
rather than going through this 40-minute tour to barely do it on time. He just gets right into the locker room.
Exactly.
Still not really even on time, because while he's in there, here comes Cliff and Howard, right?
Exactly. And he somehow plays that up really well, you know, where he doesn't get seen, but he also gets to hear exactly what's going on, you know. So I just love, you know, they turn something from point A to point B and they make a really interesting scenario, you know, out of a scene. I just give them props to that, because, you know, that could have played out just in general. Like that could have played out really badly if it was badly written, you know.
It could have played out poorly for Saul and the whole plan.
Yeah.
And it could have also been like less interesting or exciting moment if the writers didn't do it just right. So.
Yeah. And this kind of goes up to like, I think I talked about this before, you know, you have a time limit and the bad guy hits it at 1 second. Literally, he's like, I stopped it at 1 second. There were just no tense moments. You know, it felt like
this is a much better device for suspense than a clock ticking down seconds.
Exactly.
You don't need to have like the skyscraper blow up. It could just be like someone being seen where they're not supposed to be seen.
Exactly.
That still creates a more relatable and realistic amount of tension.
Exactly.
It's less easy when it's not a clock ticking and it's like a person approaching or whatever. Anyway.
Yeah. So let's see. So obviously we know what's going on. Well, especially at this point, more of the plan. You know, because of how many episodes. But that was the first time that, you know, you're like, well, Cliff starts realizing, is Howard using? No, maybe. See, I think the last shot is, let's see, a sky shot of a car going on the desert. Next one. Oh, right. The last scene, they cut it with Lalo trying to get into New Mexico. Ways of getting into New Mexico legally is to go onto a truck, like behind like a truck made of hay or something like that.
They're smuggling, you know,
immigrants.
Traffic scenario. Yeah.
But before he does that, he decides to call. I don't know if maybe it clicked, but he calls Hector. And you know how they use Hector in the show is so interesting, and I give him like high props on like how they make a character like that very tense or just the storytelling of it, because this guy doesn't talk. Like he uses a freaking bell. And at the end of the conversation, well, for one, you know, Hector knows that Lalo's alive. But also he tells him, so to get proof, you have to get Pruba, which I don't know 100% what this means, but he spells out. He's like, you know, Lalo's like, okay, well, what do you want me to spell? And he goes A, B, C, D, D, you know, and they make this somehow interesting. I don't know how, but you know, they do it with their editing and all that. But he gets Prueba out of him. And that is proof that will frame, I guess, Gus. I'm not quite sure the details of this, you know.
They need to have proof that Gus was behind this in order to start a war with Gus. That's what he's wanting Lalo to do. Lalo wants to just go get revenge. He wants to just go kill Gus or whoever gets in his way. But Hector's like, no, get proof.
Yes.
Let's.
And they finish off the scene with Lalo was trying to get on Destruct. He paid these guys to basically get him illegally into New Mexico. And the guys are, but he's like, I need to do something else. Can you give me back the money? And they're like, no. And he gets frustrated and kills him. And they could have showed this multiple ways. They could have had like this big gunfight outside, but instead they showed the inside of the immigrant. And you hear gunshots go off, and Lalo opens the door, and he's like, make sure everyone gets their money back. To make it a little bit more interesting, and instead of like some action scene, straight up action, I should say, they do an interesting way of presenting that gunfight.
Sometimes it can be more menacing to know what happened without seeing it, to like
exactly
imagine how it went, or yeah.
And
so also maybe to help us realize, because it's like the second time that it's more clear in that scene that he killed those guys, even though we didn't see it.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't originally clear in the beginning that he killed Mateo and Sylvia.
Yes.
So
yes.
When we see it in a more clear way at the end, it's verification for what had happened at the beginning.
Yes. And then they just show him driving away. And it cuts the scene. Or I'm sorry, cuts the episode. Now the episode, and I actually don't know what this one means, is called Wine and Roses. Do you know why it's called Wine and Roses?
I don't exactly know why this first episode was called Wine and Roses. In fact, certainly they think a lot about the titles.
Yes.
And sometimes the titles, I'm like, oh yeah, it means this, of course. I'm sure there are people out there who've like done some analysis.
Mm-hmm.
For this one, I don't quite know. I didn't quite piece together.
Yeah. I mean, wasn't the very, very beginning shot a wine bottle opener? Do you know that like pineapple looking thing?
I don't think so.
But anyways, I knew it was some alcohol top. I just don't know what it is. But overall,
that was a tequila top. That thing that rolled out of the drawer, that was the cap to the tequila bottle.
Okay, it was tequila. Okay, I didn't know if it was wine or not.
Multiple times through this show, yeah.
Anyways, I forgot to see potentially why the second episode, just in general, I don't know if you noticed.
It might be that Wine and Roses is some classic poem.
I figured too, yeah.
Song. I got yeah.
But the second episode, third episode, each of them have a word and a word. So basically, Wine and Roses. The second episode is called Carrot and Stick. The third episode is called Rock and Hard Place. The fourth episode, Hit and Run. I think that's interesting that they just keep
things like that in their titles before. I've mixed it up now, but I think like the first season, it was everything ended with no. It was like Uno. I can't even remember now, but if you just look at the titles, like everything ends with no. And there was another season where the first letter of each word in the title spelled out something like Saul and Kim, or it wasn't exactly that, but you got the idea.
Yeah.
They definitely used the titles to hide
play on
things
words
or
almost.
present extra meaning or whatever.
Yeah.
To be clever with it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Carrot and stick. You know what carrot and stick means, Eric?
Now I do.
Okay, yeah.
Before I actually didn't know. I always think of carrot and stick as like you're dangling somebody. You're dangling a carrot in somebody's face with a stick. But
not quite. That's half of it.
yeah. But in this case, it's actually money.
A reward and a punishment. A reward and a punishment is what carrot stick means. Like,
I actually thought it was like the money stick. Like a carrot's a certain amount of money, and a stick is even a bigger amount or a smaller amount. I actually didn't know that.
It's like, I'm going to hit you with a stick. If you do what I want, I reward you with a carrot. If you don't do what I want, I hit you with a stick. So it's double motivation. You have motivation coming on both sides.
Oh, interesting. Which we're going to talk about episode 2 and what that means, because that's pretty much the last scene, which is freaking brilliant. The scene on them talking about the carrot stick. So diving into episode 2, we already talked about this, but they open up with opening up a safe. Then this
opening was the oh no, never mind. I'm thinking of episode 3.
Yeah, the very, very first shot is a pan of a kitchen, like a sink and dirty plates and everything on a kitchen counter. And then you see the girls. One's wearing red, one's laying on a red couch, and this is like the apartment or the penthouse. I'm not quite sure what it is of Nacho Vargo. But the main objective of the scene is to show the safe, which we already talked about the safe. What is in the safe, or what they're planning on doing with the safe. And then it cuts to Saul. Saul talking about some personal injury lawsuit to Kim. It is panned on Saul, like a headshot or a close-up shot, and it pans out and you see Kim eventually in the scene. But they bring up how they're going to convince Cliff that Howard is using, basically. Like, what is their plan? How they're going to unfold this story. I was a little bit confused on the scene. I mean, obviously I knew what was going on, but I didn't know how they were going to do it. And then she ends it with, "Oh, you're going to hate this, Saul or Jimmy," which she's going to bring in the Kettlemans to. Okay. Oh, you're muted.
What's happening is they want to be able to set up a meeting with Cliff. They want to bring a case to Cliff. They don't want Cliff to actually take it.
Mm-hmm.
So it needs to be legitimate enough for him or his firm to consider it, but problematic enough for him to dismiss it. That's what they're looking for. Does that make sense? And that's where Kim comes up with the Kettlemans. That they will be perfect for this role of, the idea is that they had this case going back in season 1. It was a big part of the whole setup for the show, is that the wife got the husband to embezzle money.
Mm-hmm.
Then as they're starting to be caught, they try to get a lawyer at first and they go to Saul, but they end up going with Howard's firm instead. A bunch of stuff unfolds. I don't want to get into all the details. But it ends up with Saul getting Mike to steal the embezzled money out of their house. They end up hiding in the woods. Saul finds them. A lot of this is set up, a lot of the early interactions between Kim and Howard and Saul, and but in the end, the husband ends up going to jail, ends up doing some time in jail, and the idea is that they're gonna pitch to the Kettlemans that Howard was on coke. Because of that, they didn't get fair legal representation. That's what they're going for here. So
yes. So let's see. So in between that,
they know it's not going to go over. It still is one more. It's like watering that seed they planted in Cliff.
Yeah.
Cliff saw the coke at the place, and Cliff, Howard is such a respectable guy.
Yeah.
He's so successful and honest and friendly and positive in almost every way. His character's always in blue. The showrunners are trying to tell us he's good, legal, moral, positive protagonist character.
Yes.
So the idea of him doing coke, like Clifford, his friend is he, even with that little baggie, he just doesn't believe it. It doesn't mean anything. He's like, yeah, weird, huh? But now here comes this couple accusing him. So this is the seed planted, watering the seed. Okay.
Also, I forgot to bring this up, but I love how Howard deals with the scene of the bag falling out, because he's not like, I didn't do this. He was just confused. He was like, is this what I think it is? And he's like, how did I even get in here?
Guilty or ashamed? He was like, oh, weird. That's weird. Where did that come from?
He's like, maybe
reaction.
Yeah, maybe someone planted it in here, as in a person that works at the place, and he was concerned almost. He was like, huh, not concerned, how dare they, but just a good person almost concerned, oh, okay.
Yeah. But I don't even think he necessarily was suspicious of someone planning it on him.
No.
Maybe just maybe there's an employee that was trying to hide it for later or something,
Basically, I don't know. It shows to his character on how naive and good he is, I guess, almost.
I hesitate to say naive.
Yeah, I was debating about
pretty
that.
Shrewd, but he is, a dynamic of human psychology.
Yeah.
Is we often tend to project on other people and the rest of the world our way of seeing things.
Yes.
So if you are someone who's a dishonest liar, when someone tells you something, you will be a little suspicious that they might be lying to you.
Mhm.
If you are a genuine, honest person, when someone tells you something, you'll just accept it as true. Now, that's a
Yeah.
little oversimplified,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
that's
yeah.
just a
Idea of it.
general way that people tend to work. And so, Howard doesn't have this negative, guilty, shameful, suspicious reaction to it because that's not the
Yes.
kind of person he is.
Yes. So you get the Kettlemans. We skipped another scene, but we'll go to that in a moment. It's about Gus. But it's really interesting how Saul interacts with what's their names? There's Craig and there's Betsy. For one, like Betsy's such a bitch, but I can't help but find her character so interesting and how she acts it and all that, And Craig, I laugh every time almost he speaks, just because he's just like a nice guy. It looks like he knows he's done shady stuff, but he's just for one, he's trying to please his wife, but like also he seems to like want to do the right thing, but then his wife's like shuts him down. He's like, oh, okay,
He seems very ambitious and maybe even greedy and arrogant, right?
Yeah.
They roll up a lot of negative traits in her. At the very get-go, the first time when I first watched the show, when I first started watching, I didn't know about these colors, right? I hadn't pieced that together. But going back and rewatching, you're like, of course. I think I had started to piece it together before the end of the first season, definitely by the second season. But when she first appears, when she meets with Jimmy, her and her husband meet with Jimmy, she has a red purse and a red bracelet. Right off the bat, they were like telling us that she is on the bad guy side, and yeah, but her husband, he's not. He's not wearing red. He's not in these warm colors. He's usually neutral or even
blue,
cool colors. So we see that really that she's the bad one, if you will. And it was a good bit of humor how when Saul showed up, she's like, "You jerk! You ruined our life! Oh my God, Craig, come over here." And Craig's like, "Saul, how's it going, man?" And he was like buddy with him. She's like, "God, better you." It was a very, very good moment of humor. Well written, directed, acted, and everything. Yeah.
And going back to the colors, she is wearing a red skirt. But this is interesting.
Still in red now. She's still
red skirt with a blue and white. I'm sorry. Red shirt with a blue and white skirt. So she's bad, but good. I thought that was interesting. The color choice of that. Like obviously she's doing bad, but in the overall scale of like bad people, she's not like
she's not evil. She's not trying to murder people.
Exactly.
But it's a clue that she's up to no good, and eventually find out. Currently, her and Craig have set up like a tax processing office.
Yes.
And what we realize that they're doing is that when people come to them to do their taxes, they file it and go through the motions and say, "Okay, here's your refund." And really, the refund was $438, but they only give the person $400 and keep the extra $38 themselves. And I'm sure they're also charging a fee in the first place.
Yep.
But they're kind of taking advantage of like people who don't speak English well, people that are elderly, people who just want to get money now, people who don't understand the system.
Yeah.
He's still mixed up in a shady, illegal, immoral activity.
Yes. Craig's wearing blue with like a little bit of red hinted in there.
You can't completely absolve him of guilt.
Exactly,
right?
because he's still doing bad things. Yeah.
But that the wife is pushing him into
it. Exactly.
And part of why I say she's like maybe ambitious and greedy, because another like bit of humor we get out of it when she's like mad at Saul for ruining their lives. She says, "Children are going to public schools, like a guest. They would live normal lives and not elite rich kid lives. Like their lives are actually fine. She's just being greedy."
Exactly. I like the little blow up Statue of Liberty they have, and they had some neat shots, like Saul, like an upper shot of Saul, and then in the background, you see the Statue of Liberty, but it was just a really neat shot.
In Breaking Bad, he has a big blow up Statue of Liberty above his law office.
I noticed that.
It's like
the helping people, the U.S. Yeah. Let's see. And I like also how he brings up, like, they make a deal about this. the letter of engagement. He basically has to make them sign something so they don't screw him over, I guess is the best way to put it. Now obviously he's playing them, but it's still a funny, almost humorous moment because he's even though he's doing this, Saul is actually annoyed with them. Like this, he doesn't like dealing with them, and he knows, he's like, of course they're gonna act like this. There's a moment where he told them to sign and they're like, we're not signing this. We don't trust you. And he walks away and he has like this pen and he like wants to break it, but he knows
he doesn't want to break it. He knows them so well. He's ready to click the switch. He's counting down the seconds before they run back to him. I thought she's too greedy to pass up this opportunity.
Well, I got it.
5, 4, 3, 2, click the pin to sign with.
Well, I thought that, but I also thought because he actually was annoyed. Like he like grips it for a moment. He does know they're coming, but he's still like annoyed with it. I thought I got.
I don't necessarily want to disagree with you. It makes a lot of sense for he to be annoyed with them. Kim knew he wasn't gonna like this plan.
Yeah.
But also, I think he just he's reading them and playing them.
Yeah.
The back of his hand. He just knows them so well, and I think he's happy with himself for nailing his little performance here.
That's true.
Yes, I got him. I think that's what his body language is there.
He does love his performances, like the scene where he blew up at Kevin. He is proud of like causing a scene.
He's a con man. I mean, they established that in his youth. He is a con man. He understands human nature. He understands how to play people. He's good at predicting people's behaviors and taking advantage of it, and so on and so on.
Yes.
It is also worth noting another piece of that when he's like getting him to sign this thing that he knows doesn't really matter, but he's also directing their action after the fact. He says, I don't want you going to Clifford and Maine with this case after I give it to you, so you need to sign this paper. And sure enough, they sign the paper and then go to Clifford and Maine anyway.
Exactly.
They know so it's there.
So they end the scene with him smiling. Like obviously he knew he delivered it properly how he wanted. The plan is set. Prior to that scene, there was a scene with Gus and Tyrese and Mike, I think, and they're looking at Lalo's scene. This, we kind of talked about this, but they point out the dental work, and they're like, the dental work matches, and it shows how skeptical Gus is, and kind of he's starting to get a little what's the word, paranoid, like a little bit, because things are not. He likes to know exactly what's going on, and if there's like this chance of something, it can start unraveling on him, his character. And Lalo is very dangerous on top of that. He knows that guy could kill him. So it goes back to Nacho at his hideout. And Nacho's, getting like very paranoid. He like looks across the street. He sees like this house that has windows that are boarded up, and there's like a little crack, and he's like, I think there's someone in there. He's trying to be observant.
Like a shed, not a house, really.
Oh, it's a shed. Yeah. You're right. Yeah, it's like
shed or something. Yeah.
But he's like trying to be observant about everything. About I mean, he's sitting in there for like hours or days or whatever. So of course he's going to start picking up on stuff and making sure that he doesn't get killed.
I believe, by the way, I don't know do you want to follow down this storyline, or do you want to go
we might as well just finish up with Nacho, because they keep coming back to him.
What's going on here, I believe that guy is there to make sure that when the Salamancas do show up, Nacho dies in the firefight. I think they've given Nacho instruction, if someone comes to open fire, they expect a gunfight to ensue.
Mm-hmm.
And if somehow in the midst of that Nacho doesn't get killed, that guy's there to finish the job.
You think that he's hired by the Salamancas, though? You mean
he's
Mike?
There for Gus.
Oh yeah.
Gus, Tyrus, or whatever.
And they showed this he sneaks out the back through some air conditioner and runs around to that house, and this guy's the watchman is watching through the little hole and realizes that Vargas is right behind him, and he calls Mike. Knowing this, he calls Mike just to hang up to see if things are going, wrong, without saying that he's out of the house, and sees if Mike calls this watchman, which he does.
I don't even think it was Mike. I think it was Tyrus or someone else that was in the room. Because when he calls Mike, that's the scene. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the scene that we had actually seen before happen already. We're now seeing it from Nacho's side, but we saw before when Tyrus had pulled the gun on Mike. Mike is like putting his foot down to Gus. He's like, "I'm not gonna let you kill Nacho's dad." And Tyrus pulls a gun on Mike, and he's like,
No, actually,
"How do you think this is going down?"
I think it is Mike, because later on in the scene, Tyrese is like, I tried to call Nacho 5 times and he hadn't picked up. And Mike's like,
tried to call Nacho 5 times because Nacho isn't picking up the phone for him. Nacho's trying to get in touch with Mike because he knows that's the one person that.
Yeah. That's why I was assuming it was Mike, just because he'll only talk to Mike. He only trusts Mike. But he also knows that Mike has a role to play, and he has to double check.
Tyrus knows that Nacho is still there because his guy in the shed is keeping him up to date.
Yeah. No, that's true. So obviously he knocks this guy out and gets out of there. He goes to a red truck to try to what do you call it? Start up the car. Hot wire. I can't remember that term. Yeah. And the Salamancos come. The twins come, and they have a shootout. You realize that Lionel and Marco don't want him dead, because like some guy starts shooting at Nacho in the car.
They kill one of their own guys.
Exactly.
That guy is recklessly shooting at Nacho and might accidentally kill him.
Yeah.
They're ruthless. They're ruthless enough to kill their own guy rather than risk Nacho being killed.
Exactly, because that is their orders. But Nacho gets out of there with a blown out tire. He gets out of there because he knows, well, for one, you don't want to be messing around with the twins, and he knows if he gets captured, like he's dead. Not
just dead, he'll be tortured.
Yes, that's another thing. Yeah, because he knows obviously they didn't kill him right away, so yeah, exactly, they know he's going to be tortured. So that's the end of Nacho's scene in this episode.
More importantly, his dad won't be safe.
You're right. Yeah, he
primary motivation in everything Nacho is doing right now.
Yes.
And has been doing for a long time.
We'll go back to Gus and Mike. It pretty much ends their scene with Gus threatens or tells Mike to bring in Nacho's dad, and Mike's like, "No, you have to kill me, basically, before I do that." And Tyrese, that's why Tyrese is interesting, because Tyrese is like, I'll shoot you right now, Mike. But Nacho contacts Mike, who wants to speak with Gus, and they cut it off there, the scene. But I like the scene because there was like a couple of little things that happen, like Gus is pouring a glass of water and he knocks over a glass of water and it breaks, and he picks it up, which I assume symbolizes everything's a mess, but he's personally going to be picking up the pieces.
Yeah. I thought that was a great moment. Not only is it kind of showing that Gus is a little rattled, right? That he doesn't have control of the situation, that danger is pending. He's not used to this sort of like upheaval. He's used to having everything organized and planned and going just a certain way, and things are a little out of control. So he like knocks the glass over, but he also takes personal responsibility for cleaning up his own mess. Like
exactly.
Doing whatever he has to do. And it's very in line with his general life and personality and everything. You can imagine a lot of other people would tell someone else to clean that up, but Gus cleans it up himself.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Also, you bonked me, Horns. That's rude. Someone bonked me in the chat. So that pretty much ends. That scene in the episode is you realizing that Nacho wants to speak with Gus, basically to protect his father when it comes right down to it, But he also wants to make sure that, actually, I think that goes into episode 3, but that he wants to hear from Mike that his father will be protected because he doesn't trust Gus.
He might still be mixing up when those scenes happen, but I'm confident somewhere in the first 2 or 3 episodes.
Yeah, it's the 3rd episode.
Nacho calls Mike, and at first we see it from Mike's perspective.
Yes.
He's standing there with Gus and Tyrus.
Yeah, that's
and
episode
then
2.
we see it from Nacho's perspective.
That's episode 3.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
That's like, I think, the opening segment of episode 3 pretty much is that conversation playing out. I need to clean up the cereal that shows how not sweet a person is. Ha ha ha. Let's see. So we did the Nacho stuff or Gus stuff. There is. So this is the Kettleman scene. Like, there's they end it with the Kettlemans basically. So Saul is I think they're at their house at this moment. Maybe they're at it doesn't matter. But Kim was like, I'll go to the Kettlemans with you in the morning. And Saul's like, are you sure? And she's like, yeah. So they both go and see the Kettlemans the next day. And this scene was like really powerful. Like it makes me almost tear up because of how I realized on how, and I know like that Kim's like a really good actor, the person who plays Kim, but Jesus, the scene hit me on how she acted that scene and how the Kettlemans like acted. Like, I don't know, the performance in that scene was incredible to make me tear up.
Film work too.
And film work, yeah.
Everything. But before we even get there, it's worth noting that remember Jimmy goes and grabs some cash out of the bag, which they have a bag of a bunch of cash Jimmy's cut from getting the money in the desert.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when Kim decides she wants to go with him. She realizes that he's gonna pay them off for backing out. They wanted the Kettlemans to go to Cliff. But they don't want them to actually pursue this. Right?
Oh yeah, we missed that they do go to Cliff, and Cliff has, obviously he's like, is Howard using drugs? Yeah, right. Still plants that seed in his brain. That's like the most important part. And then they go and they're like pissed off at Saul for tricking them again. So that's kind of what the scene unfolds.
They end up going to several other law firms, and everyone laughs them off.
Yeah.
So Betsy has pieced together that he was really using them for something, and that he didn't really expect this lawsuit to happen, and she doesn't necessarily understand the big picture of his scheme.
Yeah, but she threatens him.
But she's threatening to make a big deal about it, and
especially to Howard.
His plan is to just give them a few $100 or $1,000 or whatever dollars just to shut up about the whole thing.
Yeah.
But Kim, some combination of she doesn't trust that the Kettlemans will play ball, or maybe she doesn't want to give up that money. Maybe a little bit of both. Whatever.
Pride, maybe
she wants
even
to go along. Maybe also she's like, hey, I'm as much part of the scam as you, Jimmy. I'm coming with you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, Kim is kind of right. They aren't taking it. They aren't just going for they're too mad at Jimmy. The wife's Betsy's making a big deal. She's not backing down. And so Kim steps in. It's important here. Kim is not wearing blue.
No, she's wearing like a combination of like red and purple, like a couple of different colors, like a pattern.
Yeah. Her pants and jacket, I think,
are
purple. I don't know, maroon, burgundy, kind of a dark reddish brown.
Yeah. And
her shirt is like this swirls of pink and orange, right?
Yeah.
So I've pointed out in the past that not only is Kim usually wearing blue, but it's just straight plain blue.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now she's not just is she wearing these warm colors, but it's kind of a complicated pattern. It's not just plain and basic. It's kind of swirly and intricate, kind of like Kim's path right now is not just this clear, straight line. It's this intricate, difficult to read scenario that she's in.
Yes. Another little tip of clothing is Betsy is wearing a green dress with foxes on them, which foxes are orange. Like she's trying to be sly or cunning, I guess, but it's not gonna.
And maybe she thinks she's
exactly.
safe,
That's why I was like thinking.
Kim is there to tell her she's not.
Exactly. Thought that was just interesting. Noticing that, because I was like, wait, is that fox? Oh, yeah, I see what they did there.
Something that I can't take credit for noticing, although once someone pointed it out to me, I can't stop seeing it and thinking how genius it is. But if you watch that scene, Eric, Flint, and this is the type of thing that I think you would appreciate from like a filmmaking perspective.
Yeah.
It starts off kind of featuring Betsy and Saul.
Yeah.
Craig's in the background. Kim takes a seat.
Yeah.
As Kim speaks up and then stands up, slowly, each cut, each scene,
Mm.
Saul's a little farther back, a little off to the side, not in the screen anymore, and it's just Kim taking control of that scene.
Yes, that
And
I can definitely see that.
The two of them are going. Watch it again and watch how Saul slowly fades.
I do notice that you say that because like one of the things I was having a hard time figuring out was what's Saul thinking, because his face, he looks like depressed or concerned. I couldn't figure it out, like, but he it didn't seem like he was happy at all with how this was playing out. Even though I think he knew it was going to play out this way, he wasn't happy with it. At least that's why I interpreted, because I had to watch it like a couple of times to figure out. I'm like, what the hell is he thinking? Like, what's on his mind? But I know it's not happy. And it's I didn't know if he was.
Like you said, he's sort of like disappointed, frustrated.
Yeah.
Because one, he kind of pegged it wrong. He thought he was just going to pay them off and it go along, and he's maybe a little disappointed with himself for not predicting the situation properly, or maybe he even did know that would happen. Maybe he knew as a last resort he might have to do exactly what Kim is doing now.
Yeah.
But in this scenario, Kim gets to see that he was wrong, right?
Yep.
So like he also it's tougher and more serious and dark than he wanted to go in general. But also Kim has to be the one that does it. Like maybe he's some combination of disappointed that Kim has to, or even that Kim is so good at it. Like on many levels, it's just not, he just doesn't want Kim getting mixed up in this type of thing. He's used to it. He's good at it. And so seeing Kim jump into it is like, oh, man, I don't know about this.
Yeah. Like he doesn't, he wants better for her almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like basically in general, the scene that we're talking about is Kim calls a CID officer. Basically, she sees how much they're bluffing, the Kettlemans or Betsy. And she is just so cold about this situation. Like, she's like, I don't give a care who you think you are. I know you're screwing people, and I'm going to make you pay basically for it. Because she's right, and what she says. But it was just like, it was hard to me, like almost hard to watch Kim do this,
She's sort of blackmailing or extorting.
She is, yeah.
Like they are doing something wrong in the first place. And so on one level, you should argue that Kim should just report them anyway. The fact that she's not reporting them is kind of bad, right? And that she is using it as leverage over them to get something she wants, which is to have them keep their mouths closed about the, whatever they think they know about the scam that they're running with Howard and Cliff and everything.
Yeah.
So, by the way, just real quick, I just was reminded the idea of like Saul being kind of frustrated with how Kim is coming into this. If you remember in pretty sure it was the last season, when Mike was out in the desert.
Yeah.
Or Mike and Jimmy were out in the desert, and like his phone was dead or didn't have reception. Kim knew that he was going out to meet people to get a bunch of money to get this guy. Like Kim knew he was kind of mixed up some shady stuff, and all of a sudden she hasn't heard from him in 24 hours.
Yeah.
Right. So she's worried. She goes and visits Lalo in jail, trying to get information.
Oh yeah.
Which now lets Lalo know, oh, Kim, Jimmy's husband, like it kind of gets her mixed up in it all.
Yeah.
When Jimmy eventually comes back, finds out that Lalo had met her, Lalo makes some comment to Jimmy when they get the money or whatever, and he's like worried, and he brings it up with Kim, and he's like, you don't talk to Lalo. I talk to Lalo. Like he's worried about Kim getting mixed up in this. She is getting mixed up in it again. This is maybe not quite as extreme or as dangerous, but early on, when Jimmy would try these scams, Kim would be like, don't let me hear about this. I can't know, like I don't want you to do this. I know I can't stop you, but don't involve me. Don't give me, leave me with plausible deniability. Don't, if I have to testify against you for some reason, I don't want to have to lie. I don't want to be caught in a lie. In fact, that's even at least part of why they got married. If you remember when they got married, it was right after they had this big argument, and you think they're about to break up, but instead Kim's like, maybe we should get married.
Yeah.
Reason for that is, well, a reason, maybe also they're in love, right? But a reason
Liability.
for that is now she doesn't have to testify against him. As a married couple, different laws apply, and so she can plead the fifth and not be held in contempt of court or whatever. So, anyway, point is that Jimmy is seeing how Kim's transition from in the past, not wanting to get mixed up in the scams he's coming up with, to taking control of the scams that she has come up with,
Yeah, no, absolutely. But yeah, it's just a fantastic scene. And I felt like it was like Gus and Mike were the scene prior to it, which I thought was like really well done. And then they end with this. And I was like, geez, this, like, it just shows how well or how intense the show could be without action, I guess.
Without
like
life being on the line.
Yeah. Like there's the other obviously stakes, like people's lives are still a threat or an issue, but like, like Nacho could die. But I don't know, just how they deliver the dialogue, the scene, the presentation, lighting, color, everything, like, it's just so well done. And these two episodes these two scenes back to back just shows it, I don't know, just it's really good. So that ends episode 2. Oh, sure. So there's two things I want to point out. One thing, this is kind of a funny thing. This kind of goes back to Craig's character. I love when Craig walks up and he's like, "We're mad," but how he presents that is so funny, because it sounds like
he's obviously just saying what his wife wants to
exactly
say.
And I feel like people are in that scenario a lot in a lot of ways. I don't know, but props to the actor.
People can relate to
exactly. But
the actress, by the way, that plays Betsy Kettleman, she's very active on Twitter. She tweets all the time and like kind of hams up her character. She tweets as though she's Betsy Kettleman, She'll respond to promotions about Better Call Saul and stuff. She'll make comments. And they've even, I don't know if you've seen them, but they made like a little short film of like, this is like, I don't know, years ago when the husband was in jail. It starts off with her taking her kids on a picnic, and then they're going like underneath a bridge by the highway for a picnic, and then you see a prison truck pull up with all these prisoners, including the husband, come out to pick up trash off the side of the road, and it's a way for her to let the kids say hi to their dad.
That's funny.
There's another. They did like another. Some NBC news show. I feel bad, I can't remember the name. It's something like 2020 or something like that. And they did like a little segment on Jimmy McGill. It's like a America's Most Wanted kind of segment. And and part of it is like an interview with her and Craig. And
yes.
These are worth googling these things and watching little 5-minute little bits that they've made. It's really good.
They are. That interview with Saul Goodman or Jimmy, there's like little hints in there too that like, because I think it was season 6 promotion, that show people that are I don't say alive, well, that are kind of alive.
They had to be careful with that. It was sort of like a previously on.
Yes.
That makes sense. It was sort of like a recap, but these
are people that are still active and present.
Things. Right, so they had to edit a lot of what they could possibly reveal, and I think they did a good job of kind of balancing. Like, here's some characters and elements of the story that are involved. Isn't it? Can't you imagine this being a real world scenario? Here's some humor from the Kettlemans, but without giving away details or revealing stuff that a news show couldn't possibly know about the background that we know as viewers, etc.
But this is another like thing I thought of too is, they don't show Kim, which is obvious. They're not going to show Kim because she's the wife and all that. But they don't show Howard, and Howard would be on something like that. I feel like, because he's well respected and all that. Now I could be wrong, but I just couldn't help but think that why didn't they get somebody who's as has a big friend because I thought I could be wrong, but I thought they had Cliff.
If so,
I
don't
could be
remember.
wrong on that one. I have to rewatch it because I forgot about Cliff, and then I watched. I was like, that guy looks familiar. Whatever the case,
There is, I think it is a legitimate theory that Howard might die,
Yeah.
or I don't know, be put in a coma, or
Something will
is
happen.
going to
Yeah.
happen to Howard that may include death. I don't think that's necessarily going to happen.
Yeah.
And I definitely don't think that him not being. I should clarify that this little news bit about Jim and Big O being a wanted man, that's got to be way past Better Call Saul time period, right?
Exactly.
It's from post Breaking Bad, or toward the end of Breaking Bad time period.
Yes.
So they have to be careful not to reveal certain things, like we were saying, right? But Howard not being, I don't think that Howard would necessarily need to be in that.
He wouldn't need to be, but it's just something that I, like. It doesn't help his
kid. Like they might ask to interview him, and he's like, "No, I don't want to do that." Interview.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Also, right? There's all kinds of explanations beyond he must be dead.
Yeah. But I just thought it was interesting that it leaves the question. He could be completely fine, but it does leave that question. It doesn't disprove it, I guess.
I will say, I don't know if I don't think we have time to even go on to the third episode, much less catch up to the current episode.
Yeah.
But and I don't know if you would want me to recap what I think is going down.
I think so. We'll put like this is an
extra. Made me more and more fear for Howard. I will say that.
Yeah. So we're going to like that. This is the end of episode 1 and 2's breakdown. We're going to get into, if you haven't seen episode 3, 4, 5, or 6 somehow, we're going to go into predictions on episode 6 because episode 6 did air. So
really, predictions on episode 7.
I'm sorry. There's going to be the prediction because isn't this the mid-season finale that's coming up before they take a break for a month or something like that, and then they're going to continue the rest of the episodes, which I think there's 13 or 14 episodes. I'm not quite sure.
More like 2 months. It's going to be the middle of July. I think,
when it
starts back up. So.
But anyways,
which is more than a month, but still, it's not next year. We're gonna get it sooner than you think.
Yeah.
I think, by the way, that the last episode of Better Call Saul is gonna be right before the first episode of the new Game of Thrones series, House of the Dragon.
Oh wow, yeah, a lot. So, anyways, this is gonna be massive spoilers. I mean, it's been spoilers, but this is gonna be actual spoilers for things to come because we're gonna be talking about predictions right now. Okay, so. What is your predictions, or what's this? So obviously they have. I don't know if you got this prediction through the little bulletin board that they made of Howard, which I wanted to analyze that more.
On there.
Okay.
Yep.
Obviously there's a doomsday, they call it. I think it's called Doomsday or D-Day.
D-Day.
And that's probably going to happen in next episode. I'm not 100% certain, but it's coming up very soon.
Next episode, yeah.
So. What is this prediction that you have?
Real quick, D-Day, if you didn't know, that was the name in World War II. End of World War II, the planned invasion of Europe was called D-Day. We slowly, the Americans, the Allies fighting against the Nazis, were gaining. We're starting to win, if you will. But to really win, we needed to get tanks and soldiers on the ground to go into Germany and take over, right? Mm-hmm. And doing that is tough, especially when there's all kinds of artillery and defenses and everything. And so it was a huge coordinated effort to land all these ships and to fly all these planes and to get all these troops onto the mainland of Europe to march across to Germany and win. And that was called D-Day. It was like a
historical moment.
The most historic, important, biggest operations in the history of the world was D-Day. And it was on Omaha Beach. Was at least one of the sites, one of the spots where they landed was Omaha Beach. If you remember, Kim and Jimmy go have a picnic on Omaha Beach, and that was right in front of the HHM building. And so the D-Day is happening. Does that make sense? That's what that connection is.
Okay. Yeah, I forgot that they were having a picnic, and you at first thought it was like just some outdoor thing, and then it zooms out, and boom, H.H. Gregg.
Like they're at Hamilton Hill.
Oh, yeah.
So they're calling Omaha Beach is the beach where D-Day is going to happen, their big event that they've been planning for. Okay.
Actually,
here,
can you hold on one sec before? I just need to take a small break. This will be like a minute or two.
Okay.
Actually, you could talk about something random about Better Call Saul while I'm gone. If you want.
Let me think. What can I come up with? Is there anyone in the audience? I wish I could see questions from the audience members. I'm not tech savvy enough for that. But let me see how well I can hold my own for a minute here. One thing I'll talk about is the color scheme in Breaking Bad, because I talk a lot about the colors in Better Call Saul, and it is all part of the same universe, but the writers had a different setup and a different plan for Better Call Saul than they did for Breaking Bad. So I might have talked about this in the past, but if anyone is watching this for the first time, or maybe even to just reinforce it, they were coming up with these ideas of how to use color in Breaking Bad, and by the time they got to Better Call Saul, they had a better plan, they had it more thought out, they had more experience and a better budget, and they started off from the get-go with Better Call Saul with their uses of the reds and blues, and they did it consistently throughout everything. In Breaking Bad, they were also using it, but they didn't have it fully fleshed out. They weren't as consistent about it. But here is some pieces of the core of it. Yellow representing the meth trade. The deeper into meth trade, the more prominent yellow is. So the most extreme is when Walt and Jesse are in the lab cooking the meth. They're wearing the yellow hazmat suits. Later on, we even see the Todd character wearing a yellow hazmat suit when he's cooking up the meth. Sometimes here and there are moments that are involved with meth that don't have yellow or don't have it quite as prominent because they weren't as consistent about using the colors, but that was clearly the idea of what they wanted to represent. Us, by the way, in his yellow polo shirt and head of the meth cartel, some of the things that they established in Breaking Bad carry over to Better Call Saul. Like they've already made the whole polo uniform and restaurant and everything be centered around yellow. So they have to stick with that, even if they have a different meaning for yellow in this new series. And you see Gus outside that uniform a lot for that reason, because they don't necessarily want him to be in yellow if they can represent him in some other way.
I'm back, by the way.
Okay, so I got to finish this thought now.
Oh, no, go for
it. And the far end of yellow, I'm talking about colors in Breaking Bad versus Better Call Saul.
Oh, cool,
so on the far end of yellow on a color scale is purple. And this is what actually got me to first start paying attention to the colors. When I was watching Breaking Bad, I couldn't notice how Marie was always in purple. She had like purple curtains, like the silverware napkins were purple. Like there's no way this clear, prominent, constant purple all around Marie is just a coincidence. And eventually started to piece it together. The showrunners talk about it online. If you think about Hank, he is approaching the meth trade, right? He's like investigating and on the outskirts of figuring it all out. And he's in orange. Orange is approaching yellow. So they also did things like they start off with Walt in like beiges and baby blues, light colors, but slowly he gets darker and darker. Heisenberg is just wearing straight black with a black hat. They also did things like they would have like a blue tint to the film when they did flashbacks and a yellow tint to the film when they were in Mexico. So they were definitely using color in a lot of different ways, but it was definitely a different plan for Better Call Saul. So when I talk about it or when you're analyzing it yourself, be careful not to assume that it's the same in both those roles. Okay, anyway, Eric's back. Flint is back. Flint, tell me what something that might be puzzling you, some question you have or something you haven't pieced together.
Okay, so
you want to pick my brain on?
Yeah. In general, I mean, I kind of know. Obviously, Gene is where he is right now. I'm trying to figure out in detail how obviously the prequel matches up to the present. Oh, it's not that. It's more of how do the other characters like Kim and Howard fit into this whole puzzle? How are they going to end Gus's storyline? Well, Gus/Mike's storyline in Better Call Saul, because we know where they go to, you know, how Gus and Mike's story ends because it's in Breaking Bad. You know, they have a whole nother story in Breaking Bad, but what is their main goal? Obviously, it's to tell who they are, at this point. But there's more to it. Like as a storyteller, this needs to hold up to its own story. So what are they trying to lead? Obviously Lalo plays a big part in this. But
right now you're sort of asking sort of big picture questions.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Which I can definitely talk on, but I was meaning a little bit more like my brain is just so wrapped up in this past episode and what's coming up in this next episode.
Yeah.
Which will tie into the big picture, but
I guess the biggest.
For example, let me tell you real quick.
Yeah.
Did you notice that black book that the vet had? Remember that scene?
Yeah. So. Isn't the vet
that was in the opening sequence?
Isn't he in
the first episode when the ties and are going through Saul's mansion? That little black book was in there.
Okay, I was like, I couldn't remember if that vet was in Breaking Bad. I had to think about that. I don't know. That's a question I just don't know.
Pretty sure he was not. I don't want to be like 100% sure.
Yeah,
he's been in Better Call Saul before.
Yeah, okay.
Saul, I think and Mike have gone to him a couple times.
Okay, that may be it then.
Obviously, on the show, he's been. I'm almost certain he's been in at least one, maybe 2 or 3 episodes of Better Call Saul.
Okay. I'm trying to 100% figure out what they're planning to do with Howard. Like, what is that D-Day? But I actually don't know. I wanted to study that bulletin board or whatever they have in detail. I briefly did, but that was going to be a task for me to actually try to see if I could solve it. Like, I noticed, like, there was his vet visit was on there, or basically his eyes need to be dilated for some reason. I don't know why. Either there's the cameras, like they showed that on the board. Like I'm talking about him filming with the
camera crew.
I'm trying to think who they're trying to make a double of. That person I don't know. Mustache Man, I'm calling him. Obviously he's some big law or something to do with law.
He's a judge. Mediator. He's a mediator in the Sandpiper case.
Okay. There's a couple of other things obviously that they had. He was.
Do you recognize the guy with the broken arm at the end when Saul kind of flipped out?
Yeah, that was the body double.
It was the same guy. Do you understand why he's flipping out?
Yeah, because he is not supposed to have that in the same day that he gets, I guess, a scam picture that's coming out. Like I do know that, like, if he has a broken arm, but he's also in this picture the same day, that doesn't line up with their story. And that's a big deal. So they're going to have to figure out how to deal with that. Like whether they redo the shot, but I don't know what they're planning on doing. But they need that to be concrete, whatever that evidence is. I know that. Obviously, it has to do with Howard because they show like the building. I mean, obviously you know that, but like it's probably going to happen somewhere around there. I'm not quite sure. Like the building itself. I liked how you brought that in, that the D-Day thing, history.
So the sticky note before D-Day was T-1. It's like a countdown.
Oh, yeah.
10 days before D-Day is T-987, right? Then you get to the last, and it crossed it out. That day when they're crossing out was the day before. The next day is D-Day.
Yeah.
Also pointed out that Kim was like this moment that Kim was worried about, that she has this meeting set up with Cliff. Aside from all the scam and everything, Cliff is setting up some sort of like legal institution that's supposed to help underprivileged people, and he wants Kim to be part of it.
Yeah.
Her meeting for this is the same day as their D-Day.
Yeah.
And she was frustrated, but Saul's like, doesn't matter, go to it anyway.
Yeah.
So she's driving there, and he calls, say, hey, plan's messed up, the guy's got a cast, and she turns around, she's coming back.
They also pointed out
to make sure it happens right away.
Yes. They also point out this is like an underline to a bigger picture, I feel. He was about to buy that same bottle with the bottle cap, the pineapple or whatever the heck, the bottle cap, when he sees the judge.
I think he was buying that to celebrate. The plan's coming together.
That's what I
the plan's not coming together, and he left it behind.
Yeah, I thought it was part of the plan, but I didn't know that 100%. I knew it obviously linked to the intro, the intro of the season. Potentially, I guess I might.
In an earlier season, Jim and Kimmy scammed some guy at a bar to get him to buy them that same tequila.
Mm-hmm.
And when Gus in the Breaking Bad world poisons Don Eladio and the other cartel people, he uses that same tequila. It's come up several times. It's like a motif for the show. So
there's also
And it's like something to celebrate with. It's supposed to be like really nice. It was like $500 for that bottle
I
of
bet,
Jimmy.
yeah.
You know, to give you an idea. So it's like a luxury. You know, it's a
They've been hinting that there's going to be some type of, I mean, we talked about this, some type of conflict with a person that Howard hired and potentially the people that are following, or Mike's people.
Howard hired a PI to follow Jimmy.
Yep.
Also, Mike has a PI following, or maybe not a PI, but people
Yeah.
following both Jimmy and Kim. It's sort of, I want to say
Safety
it's
measure.
protection against Lalo. I don't know if he cares as much about protecting him as he does about finding Lalo.
Yeah. But
here's the thing. Go ahead.
Whatever the case, that is probably going to become an issue on D-Day. I don't see what, for one, as a storyteller, I don't see why I wouldn't do that. So I don't see why they wouldn't do that. I'm talking about for conflict reasons, because
I don't think it will, just so you know.
Oh,
I think
okay.
they'll have another conflict. I think they'll have another conflict. I was thinking that at first, but I'm starting to steer away from it. I wouldn't be surprised, but it's not what I expect at this point.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking of like something that is out of control for them. Like it has to be something that they think they have everything in control and they don't.
I agree. There is a specific thing
Yeah.
that I think they're setting up that they won't have control over, and then it's going to make it go worse than they thought it was going to.
Cliff?
Worse. Nope.
Okay.
I'll get to it in 1 second. This is all puzzle, right?
Yeah.
Let me ask you this question. You remember when Howard wanted to box Jimmy?
Yeah.
He's like, look, Jimmy, I know it's you, the prostitutes, and the cocaine. Come on. And then Jimmy's like, no. And it's like, don't try to pretend. And Jimmy's like, okay, you're right. He basically like admits to it. And he goes back and tells Kim, we're not worried. They weren't like, oh no, our plan's ruined. Howard figured us out. Why not? Why weren't they concerned?
Because they were expecting it.
They want him to hire a PI. They want him to see what they're doing.
Oh.
What is the first thing that they see him do out of the ordinary? Remember when the PI is reporting to Howard? He says, all right, he meets his client, and he goes home, he goes to work, he goes to the courthouse, he meets his client.
Then, he was at his place. He was at his actual bill. No, he was getting an envelope, like money. He had extra money. Or
he withdrew a huge amount of money from the bank in cash. Why would he do that? Good question. Okay.
Why did I think I assumed I knew what that was? I assumed maybe I was just not thinking too hard into it at the moment. I was thinking
there are
overly.
many things he might have withdrawn that money for.
Yeah.
For example, he might have withdrawn that money to pay for all the remodeling.
That's what I was thinking. I think. Yeah. But he doesn't know where he got the money.
He doesn't need to get a bunch of cash for that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things he might need or could do with that cash. But the important thing is that he needed for the PI/Howard to see that happen. Because the next thing he wants them to see is him handing a package to a lookalike judge. We saw a flash of pictures when Jimmy's talking to Kim. He's like, I looked at all the pictures. You can see his arm. No cast. It's not going to work. And what they want is for Howard to think that this judge who's mediating the Sandpiper case has gotten a bribe from Jimmy. Howard is already suspicious of Jimmy. He already knows Jimmy's up to something. So just add to that.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense because...
add to Howard being suspicious about the whole Sandpiper case. The judge didn't really take this bribe, so if Howard accuses him, the judge is going to be like, Howard, what are you talking about, right? Howard
this goes with the planting a seed in your thoughts type of thing. Or, like, how, this is like planting a seed, like how Cliff is getting a seed planted in his head, and he's like, they're going to do it to Howard, you're saying.
Now, here's another piece. Saw Jimmy at that vet,
and
he was doing some kind of drug that was like caffeine-like. They said it's like 2 Red Bulls and an empty stomach, and he looked in the mirror, and his eyes were dilated.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yes, and they showed that's on like the little clip note thing. His eyes being dilated for some reason.
And they asked, "Is the subject, is the other guy, whatever they said, is he about your build?" Jim's like, "Yeah." About Howard. I want to give Howard this drug to make it look like he's coked up. Clifford Main's son, is a drug addict.
Yes.
That's been revealed. So he would recognize the symptoms of being on drugs in Howard. I think he did. They won't be real symptoms. but it made Jimmy look sweaty and it made his eyes seem dilated. It
Yeah.
probably will give him some actual energy, which Howard already kind of has anyway. So it's going to make Cliff even more suspicious of Howard if he sees dilated pupils.
Oh, they're gonna drug him. You're saying somehow.
Right. Also, at first, I thought they were going to drug him by putting it in his coffee.
Huh?
They made a whole point of that scene and his wife and the coffee. However, I think what that scene was actually doing, it was showing like the tenuous relationship between.
I forgot he was married,
wife.
honestly.
They've hardly made a point of it.
Yeah.
They've hardly ever talked about it or mentioned it. I had to go back and look if he was wearing a wedding ring before.
Yeah. I watched that because I was like, okay, she's married. Okay, he's married. Oh, the wedding ring.
In that scene when we saw Howard in a meeting with the psychologist, or whatever, he was talking about his wife. That was like a clear reveal.
Yeah.
Anyway, another point that was being made there that I want to go back and investigate more because I bet they've showed it to us in the past. He made that cup of coffee for his wife. He made a cup of tea for himself. He might not be able to drink caffeine. He might have like a heart murmur or something like that.
You think that's how he's gonna
and that scene was leading me to think that they were gonna spike his drink, but I was like, how in the world are they gonna get this drug into his drink? It didn't make sense. But I watched back again. It's a topical solution. He said his skin felt dry where he put it on him. He needed to drink it. He just needs to touch it. I think they're gonna put it on the pictures. I think they're gonna have to scramble to take new pictures. I think Kim, what was flashing through her mind when Jimmy was saying a plan's ruined, she was like trying to figure out how are we going to do this. She made that quick U-turn to go back home and get her sling from when she had a broken arm, give to the fake judge to take new pictures. They will then put the drug on, put it in an envelope, put Howard's name on it, slip it under the door. However, they're going to get these pictures to Howard right before the meeting. Remember, there's also about to be a meeting. All the people involved in Sandpiper. It includes a phone call, like a group call with all of the old people from the home.
Yeah.
Remember, Jimmy had Francesca make that phone call?
Yeah.
He's trying to get in on that call. That's what's going on. There's about to be a meeting about the Sandpiper case with Howard, that judge, with Cliff, probably a bunch of other lawyers and officials, and all the clients, all the people at all the old folks living at Sandpiper are going to be on a phone call. And in this meeting, Howard is going to have been drugged by Jim and Kimmy, being shown a picture of someone who he thinks is the drug, getting a package from Jimmy after he saw Jimmy withdrawing a bunch of cash from the bank.
Yeah.
Howard's going to flip out. Howard's going to think this judge is in on it. He's going to be mad at Jimmy for the scam that he's running. He's going to be accusing the judge, and the judge is going to be like, what are you talking about? And Cliff is going to be like, Howard, you're high on drugs. Your eyes are dilated. I know what's going on here. I saw it in the country club. I know you. You know what I mean? And a day or a week later, Howard might be able to clear this all up. He might be able to take a drug test and show I didn't have any cocaine.
Yeah.
He might be able to prove his alibi about being in the psychologist's office when Clifford saw that Wendy thing. The judge can prove that it wasn't him. But in that moment, it's going to be so crazy and chaotic and weird. Howard's going to be removed from the Sandpiper case, which is the whole plot that they have in the first place.
Yeah.
It's just to get him removed from the case because they believe that Howard is dragging the case out to get more money from Sandpiper.
Right.
They don't believe that. They know that. It's definitely what Howard's doing. We even saw a scene to remind us of that, right?
Right.
He's trying to get more money for the old people by dragging the case out longer.
Yes.
But Jim and Kimmy want to just end it now so they get their payout. Jim's going to get like over $1 million % of this whole case because he started it all in the first place. It's been turned over to the law firms, but he's still going to get his cut, which would be like $1 million. And he'd rather just get $1 million now than, or maybe it's 1.3 or 1.8 million or whatever, but he'd rather get it all now than a little bit more, a year or something, or years or something down the road.
Wait.
Or you believe that the people from Sandpiper might prefer that too? You could go back and forth, but I think what's going to happen is it's going to work, but that Howard is going to overreact to the caffeine.
Yeah.
He's going to flip out. He's going to have a heart attack. We saw in the previews, he's like running up and down the stairs. He's going to trip and fall and bust his head. Something really bad is going to happen that Jim and Kimmy weren't planning on. Which might lead to
Jimmy being.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I wonder if this is going to be leading into an investigation, which is why Jimmy gets out of town.
Jimmy doesn't get out of town. Jimmy becomes Saul and represents.
Oh, you're right. That's not like right away. I always forget about that. There's actually a clear timeline difference.
We know that Jimmy at the end of all this is going to be okay. He's almost definitely going to get the $1 million payout because that's how he buys a super mansion.
Right.
Kim might fall for Jimmy. Might feel so guilty about what she's done that she leaves Jimmy or leaves town. Kim might be in jail. Kim, maybe nothing will happen to Kim. Maybe she'll feel bad. Maybe she'll be happy Howard got with. Maybe she'll get the money and open her law firm and be working in the background with Jimmy. I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen, but I'm pretty sure something really bad is going to happen to Howard that isn't what Jim and Kimmy intended.
What is the timeline you think, like, between Jimmy becoming Gene and this moment? Is it years?
5 years, 6 years?
Because lawsuits also take a long time to build. I'm not saying that it is still related, but lawsuits do take time.
What lawsuit would there be?
Oh, that Jimmy's guilty. And eventually when he realizes he's guilty.
A lawsuit is different from a criminal investigation. A lawsuit is when I say, okay, so say you wreck your car into me.
Yeah.
There's a legal issue where the police say illegal change of lanes. Here's a ticket. Pay this fine, right? But then a lawsuit is you caused this injury to my neck, so I can't work anymore. So you owe me $1 million since I can't work. That's a lawsuit, right? They both have to do with the law, but one is like a criminal penalty, which Jimmy and Kim are guilty of all kinds of conspiracy and falsifying documents and all kinds of other. I think when I think about it, they might not have broken too many laws.
Yeah, that's what I was like thinking. Especially if he goes into comatose versus death. Death is different too.
Right. Yeah.
But
anyway, I maybe there's some sort of pending case against Jimmy that's dragging on for years. I guess that's a possibility.
Yeah.
I don't think so though. I don't think he could get the money from Sandpiper if that was the case. I think it's gonna be really hard to trace all this to him. He can play dumb in a lot of ways too. Like even like the picture of the judge with Jimmy handing him a package. Jimmy could say like, my fault you confused my actor with your judge. I was just filming a commercial with my crew. I was going to put a commercial on TV for my new law firm. I didn't know anything about this judge in your Sandpiper case. You know what I mean? He has ways to, like they said that the drug wasn't traceable. Like I think it'll be hard for him to get caught, and it'll be easy for Howard to clear his name, but not till after all this crazy chaos happens.
Yeah.
And if Howard dies, there will be even more lost. Like Howard kind of knows Jimmy's up to something, but no one else does. So if Howard dies or goes to a coma, there's no one even tell on Jimmy about it. Maybe Howard's wife. She even seemed suspicious about the whole thing when Howard was telling her, just so you know, I've got this thing with Jimmy handled. She's like, what, the bowling ball and prostitute stuff? Okay, sure.
I actually thought
she didn't care. It seemed like she hardly even believed any of it. She's just kind of done with Howard.
I was gonna say I got the vibe that the relationship was strained or like something, like it's over and he's trying to fix it. He's trying to become a better person. He's going to therapy, and he's trying to fix his marriage and to the detail that he would do something really special for her with the coffee or whatever she did, and she just blows it off. It felt actually really bad.
Another cup. You're like, okay, thanks, see you later.
Yeah. That's how I took it. That went over my head, actually, the thing that you're talking about until now. I was like, that makes a lot more sense. I was too caught up in the emotion of his state, and I was like, man, I feel so bad for him. Like, that's just terrible. Anyway.
That's another general thing that's going on is that there's been a lot of time this season having us get to know Howard, showing that he's trying to be a good person and make his life better and help people around him, and they're making him more of a good guy, which makes Jimmy and Kim more bad guys going after him.
And this would be also extra tragic.
Much more tragic if they act exactly. Yes.
No, I like the theory. It's funny just because everyone assumes that. Well, when I realized, in the boxing episode that Howard, oh man, he could actually die to the Salamancas. I thought like an issue with that, Gus and all of them. If he died completely not even, involved with that issue, but just literally by accident from something that Kim and Jimmy did, that's like even more tragic. Because it's not like and accidentally he fought. He comes up across and then gets killed because of it. He was trying to do the right thing and he got screwed over by Jimmy and, and Kim with their conspiracies. That's interesting. I like that theory, and I actually think you're right about it. Like, it just makes too much sense. It has too many.
Like I said, I've been obsessively thinking about this for the past 48 hours or whatever. I've watched the episodes so many times, and
so you didn't even find that online, like that theory. That's like purely from you, right?
There's many people are piecing different parts of this together.
Okay.
I haven't seen anyone else put it all together exactly like this.
Okay.
I don't want to pretend like I came up with this all on my own.
Yeah, but you looked at some hints and all that.
Yeah. So someone else, for example, the thing I feel like I was most off on was them spiking the drug. Someone else pointed out that it was a topical drug, and I went back to watch the episode. Sure enough, they said that, and I was like, so then I came up with the idea, which also is in a preview. There's a picture in what I think is like a dark room where you would be developing photography, and someone has like a little dropper. I think that's Saul putting the drugs on the photos that they just took. That's what I think is going on there.
Also, I think there's a shot of, I could be wrong because I only saw it once, the preview, that Howard's like in a room laying on I don't want to say a couch, like a comforter or a recliner, like pulled back, like as if he's drugged, I guess. I didn't think about it at the time, but
to next week's episode?
Yeah. I thought he was laying down. Sure. Like, I was like, that's an interesting shot. Why is he... I mean, it's not something like big, but like, why did they show that, on the preview?
I don't even remember seeing that image.
Yeah. Like I said, I could be wrong. It could have been another character, but I thought it was like a profile shot of someone laying down. I thought it was Howard. Or lying back on a comforter.
When you first said that, what I thought was it was maybe a preview for the season as a whole, and that was an image of him in the counseling session with the psychologist.
Oh.
That's why I'm wondering, are you sure it was a preview for next week?
It was definitely a preview for next week. Okay. I mean, he could still be going to the counselor. I mean, potentially.
Yeah.
It's just interesting. Yeah. Hopefully he's fine, but probably not.
I think we're going to see, I think among other things, one thing we're going to see next week is a scramble to get a new photo shoot done. Using Kim's sling.
Yeah.
And we're going to see Howard flip out at the meeting. And probably some bad tragic thing. But we might also see some stuff with Lalo. We might also see some stuff, that...
Yeah, because the Lalo, obviously...
by the way, that Jesse and Walt, I think those actors are cast for this next episode. It might be very quick cameos. I don't think the episode's going to be all about them, but I'm pretty sure that they are in the cast.
I have heard that Walter and Jesse are supposed to reprise their roles. I didn't know if it was this half or the second half. Also, I don't know how...
but I'm pretty sure it's this coming episode.
And obviously, Saul never meets them until the moment that he meets him in the Breaking Bad. But whose character, maybe Kim, did run across him on accident? Run across him.
Jesse ate at the restaurant where Kim keeps going to meet clients. Beza or something like that.
Yeah.
That was a place that Jesse mentioned or ate at a few times, and they've mentioned it or eaten there a few times this season.
But also, Walter and Jesse never meet each other until they meet each other in the show, Breaking Bad.
Walter and Jesse do. Jesse was one of Walter's students.
Oh, wait, you're right.
That's how we knew him. I
completely forgot about that. How silly of me. They didn't work together until that. Yeah. Right. No, you're right. It'll be interesting to see how they tie them in, But I think you're right. That's going to be like a small little thing. It's not going to be a focus. Again, though, maybe they will like focus a little bit on them because they're paying to get them back. So we'll see.
It could be just a couple quick scenes just to tie it together, or just to make fans happy.
Yeah.
Or it could be some integral thing, some
hidden
parallel that
truth.
we never realized that we get a new perspective on.
Well, cool.
Anyway, I'm happy to kind of get that out and hopefully get your mind thinking in that direction. And people out there, hopefully you see that I'm right about my prediction and you appreciate my analysis. And but I feel like we still want to cover these other interim episodes.
We will.
I don't want to go much more into detail than we already have. But
No.
I think in these next
Yeah.
episodes, we'll be looking at from a perspective of how it feeds into what we saw was coming.
Yes, we were definitely going to dive into episode 3, 4, 5, and 6. Probably 3, 4, and then 5 and 6 in another. The week after is my guess. We'll hopefully be caught up. So when they start airing it again, we could go week by week.
Yeah. I think we should easily be caught up by then.
Yeah, I don't see why we wouldn't. But if you like this, come back next week because we'll be talking about 3 and 4. Also, if you like Dancing Sean, he has a YouTube. Was it Dancing Sean?
Yeah. Dancing Sean on YouTube and also Dancing Sean on Twitter.
Yes.
I'm super excited to engage with people over Better Call Saul or Game of Thrones or many other things.
Yeah, I know.
If you're watching a show and you want to talk about it or ask me questions or tell me why I'm wrong or give me your theory or whatever, please engage with me.
Yes. I know there's Dances with Dragons, which we may do. I know Sean's going to be doing it with Aziz. They have
the dragon.
Wait, the House of Dragons. Yeah, my bad. When it comes out, that's going to be on Aziz's channel.
History of Westeros. History of Westeros.
Thank you. I had a blank.
Even now, every week we do a 2. I mean, I think we're averaging closer to 3-hour live stream talking about the world, the history and the world of Westeros and Ice and Fire and all that story and all that world every week. There's another book that's not part of the main novel series, but it's called A World of Ice and Fire, and it's just like information and history about all over the different lands and houses and histories and everything. And we're doing like 3 hours per page on that book. So
I actually still need to read that book. I have the book, but I need to read the House of Dragons, or do they call it Dances with Dragons in the book?
Dance of Dragons.
Dance of Dragons, thank you. Yeah.
Dance of Dragons was the name of one of the books in the main novel series. It's the name of an event in the history of Westeros,
yes.
The Dance of Dragons. In the book, it's like a series. The book, it does like ancient history, and then it does like different areas of the world, and it does the different houses. But then it has one section that's just like all the Targaryen kings. And through that, it's going to talk about the Dance of Dragons.
Yeah.
The Dance of Dragons was like a civil war among the Targaryens. So.
Yeah. And everyone loves dragons, so they thought it would be probably a good spin-off, to the franchise. But anyways, I know that's stuff to come. But again, thank you for watching us, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.